I call the meeting of the October 8th, 2014 meeting of the Municipality of Anchorage Board of Ethics to order. Dora Felicia, will you call the roll?
Yes. Ted Carlson. Terrence Kelly.
Actually, my real name is Lisa.
Okay, Lisa Kelly.
Here.
You spell it with an E though.
There's a silent Q. Silent Q.
Oh, silent Q. Okay, David Nesbitt is on his way. Keith Silver.
Here.
Steve Strong.
Here.
Dee Ennis, Deputy Municipal Attorney, will be joining us shortly. Glenda Regnard, Administrative Hearing Officer, will return shortly. And also we have a guest today. This is Amy Solberg. She is the new scheduling clerk in the municipal clerk's office. And she's here to see how this whole operation goes and, you know, back me up if needed.
And the soda lady.
And the soda lady. Oh, you're the soda lady. Okay, and we have a quorum.
Great. So we need a motion to approve the agenda. And so you just skip that one.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to move the agenda. Any opposed? Hearing none, the agenda's approved. Now, as I recall, we need to approve both sets of these minutes because we didn't have them last time.
Yes.
Okay. Under 4A, you've got the meeting minutes of our, actually, I think, I believe that would, that would have been the special
Do I
on the
have it
3rd
backwards?
and the regular on the 10th.
Yes, you're right. Thank you. I'll make that correction.
Because that's how it says here on the minutes.
Yeah, you're right.
So, anybody have any changes to the minutes of the special meeting on the 3rd?
And just FYI, these minutes were drafted and given to Assemblymember Trainee for direction on how he was going with his resolution that he was writing.
I did see he did exactly what we asked him to do. So do we have a motion to approve?
As amended? You amended?
Well, actually, I amended the agenda.
Oh, after we
Correct.
voted on it? Okay.
I amended the order of the special versus, yes.
Okay.
Made a correction, I didn't amend, right?
Correction, okay. Move
So-
approval.
Is that what you call it?
So we have a move approval for 4A of the special meeting, special Board of Ethics meeting in 9/3. Do we have a second?
I can't, I wasn't here. You were.
What's that?
I said,
Oh,
I
that's
can't
right.
second it, I wasn't here.
Oh,
Second.
okay, good. Well, let's hope it
Well, you can't move and second.
I moved it.
Sure I can.
I thought I moved it. Did
What do you
move it?
have
You
on your?
changed the agenda.
No,
without even
you
asking
moved
for-
it,
moved it.
and then
All right.
and Lisa with
Any
an E
opposed?
and a
It was a
Q
correction.
seconded.
Any opposed? 3. Well, the move and second, so that one passes. How
Well,
about?
and the reason I tell you that
even vote?
stuff
Well,
about
we're never gonna get through this.
and giving that to Assemblymember Trainee is because make sure that I represented your, discussion.
4B is actually a regular meeting on 9/10.
Move to approve.
It's been moved. Do we have a second? You're changing the way you're doing it slightly, which is fine. I'm not complaining. I'm just noticing you've got, like, that's where you're getting your duties to do. Like Regnart listed designated ethics officer and things like that. Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve meeting of 9/10. Any opposed? Hearing none, that's approved. Any appearance requests? Any special orders of business or executive session? Under new business, we have under 7A, gift disclosure forms. Oh, Lord. Okay. Are these okay, we shouldn't have seen this one.
Right.
So, I'm wondering if we shouldn't have sent this one back.
Well, see, I think we have a whole different procedure we need to develop now because of the new code.
School district has a whole different procedure because of
Yeah.
the new code.
I mean, we can't respond by just saying, oh, here's that letter, because,
Well, no, because this is a parent group. I'm not having
Yeah.
an issue with the amount. I'm having an issue with the fact that we got it because that particular school, Chugach Elementary, should have handled that internally.
okay. So we need to decide what should I do when I get these now? Should I be sending them back to the school? Should we develop a letter?
Well, this particular one was before the new law. took
No, this is
effect.
this happened 9.
No.
Oh, I
Five-
apologize.
five-
This happened on 5/14, so
2000.
now we've got an issue with the fact that she didn't notice us in an
Earlier.
appropriate time.
Yeah.
So.
But
it
it's
was still
still-
under the old law at that
Yeah,
time.
but it's still
common
under
gift,
the, it's
though,
still
isn't it?
under a parent group. It wasn't.
Yeah, PTA.
Yeah.
So maybe we can just pass over
On this one, but in
because-
it, I guess in the future, we do need to consider that issue if we get something from somebody that's the reason we actually worked
Yeah,
on
a
making
way to
that code
push it
change.
back.
Yes. Push it back to that particular school and say, hey, this is now, maybe with a copy of the code with a highlighted saying, this is where you guys are supposed to do.
Copy of ASD policy? Did they
Well-
develop policy?
Have they developed a policy?
I'm not sure.
I don't know. I can check.
I'll check here.
Well,
Let me silence this thing.
oh, that's different.
Yes, maybe we should craft a letter saying, this is the new situation and you should be handling these internally and just start sending these back with that letter.
Okay.
I didn't catch the date, so I missed on that one. I apologize. I was looking at the date on the top.
Yeah, but you'll see on the third one that we have to address this, because that will be one that we've got to decide what we're gonna send back to them.
This is the old form though, right? The next
Yeah.
one is the new form,
New form.
right?
And you'll see D signed off on this one. So we're actually now requesting an exception. So I'm assuming if the ethics officer signs off on it, it's been approved to be an exception.
Well,
This next one,
when you see the bottom on here,
Well, they're giving them away.
yeah, they're
So-
donating them to the women's shelter.
Yeah,
So I mean, I don't, and that's exactly what we wanted to see.
Right.
right.
So I don't see any need to send this one back.
No.
And that's my personal
Yeah.
opinion.
Right.
See, the next one, which is a school district employee, we should just send it back and tell them to use the appropriate form.
But in this particular case, I'm a little confused. This is a police officer. Why is he using the Anchorage School District?
Well, it's an employee of the municipality or
Or,
the school
yes.
district. We combined it.
Okay.
So.
And the police officers are precluded from receiving anything, period.
Right.
So the fact that it's donated is not an
Yeah.
issue.
So what he's saying is, may I take this and give it away? And then D is signing off on it
Saying
saying yes.
Okay.
Okay. I don't have an issue with that.
But the next one should have been on the new form, right?
9:30, yes.
Or 9/27, received it on 9/27.
Well, it's just the form with the, yeah.
Yeah, so I would
And
just.
received from Jason Bruni, I'll have to give him a bad time.
But it says former, previous student, parent of previous student.
But still, I
But
think.
Still, it's,
The new
yeah,
law, they
I
can't
would
accept
even,
anything.
Right.
I wouldn't even address this one. I would just send it back with a cover letter saying, use the new form.
And the new law said they can't accept anything over $50.
Yeah.
Well, they could ask for an exception if they do something like this, like
Yeah.
donating it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but I wouldn't even address it. I would just send it back with a cover letter saying.
Well,
use
see,
the new form.
when I'm looking at this one here, this was given, is this, maybe a little more some questions. It appears like it's being used as a fundraiser for September Fest.
right.
And he gave it to this teacher, former teacher of one of his kids.
But they can put that on the new form, just like the.
But that shouldn't
just
have
like-
gone to the teacher, it should have gone to the school.
So,
Right.
so just like the policeman did on this one, D can approve that
So
it's
it
donated.
may not be an issue, except that it's one, it's on the wrong form,
Right.
and two,
The new form is the
Rogers
remedy to
Park
all of our
Elementary,
problems, right?
Christ.
That's why we developed it.
they live in the gravel pit over in Sand Lake. I'm confused as to why his kid's going way over there.
So
School
can
choice.
are you asking me to send back send it back, ask them to use the new form,
And follow the.
have a letter that includes the new code and school policy, and then direct them, is the school policy for them to direct it to their principal?
Right.
Well,
Does it say on
doesn't
this
it
form
it
here?
says it on here, doesn't it?
I'm looking on their form.
I can imagine what happened is she went out and solicited a donation for there, and so she just put her name on it. Or she should have just filled it out with the school's name on it,
Or
because it's for the school.
if it's given to
not
the
for
school,
her
do you even
individual.
fill out a form?
Well, if it's given to the school now, I think the school just gives you something saying that you donated,
Yeah.
so you can write it off on your taxes.
So it's a fundraiser for the school, so it was given
Yeah.
to the school. So she
I'm
really
trying-
didn't.
I'm trying to remember, and not to declare a potential conflict, my kid goes to Rogers Park and I was at Septemberfest.
Uh-oh.
And you bought it.
You benefited from this.
And you were on the
Did you,
cruise.
did you win
I
the
hate to
cruise?
say it, my name is in fact Jason Brady.
No, it's actually Bruni, and I know him
With
really,
a
really well.
silent
Well,
T.
his kid's probably in the HG program, that's probably why we were
Okay.
at Rogers Park. But I believe Septemberfest was a fundraiser for the PTA,
Which,
not for the school. But in either case, it's not, you know.
but that's the Parent Teachers Association, so, I mean, I understand if you gave it to a teacher as opposed to the principal.
Is he the principal?
No, he was formerly working for Anglo-American and is out of a job right now.
Did you guys read this though? On the certificate, she says one ticket given to me, Catherine Longlet, other ticket given to Robin Hill, Rogers Park Elementary highly gifted teacher, first grade. So,
Boy, threw our colleague under the bus. Yeah, I'll tell you.
yeah, I mean, they're the ones getting the ticket, not the fundraiser.
Well, if that's the
Case,
case,
purpose or
she
nature of
can
this
have it.
fundraiser for Rogers Park.
It's over $50.
Compared to the previous student.
Well, or is it? One ticket is $99, two of these is $198, okay.
Yeah.
So it
Um,
wasn't for a fundraiser.
Well, it's
Hard to say.
confusing, but I still think it needs to go through the normal process, the new process.
Okay.
Yeah. I think
Because
that
if it's a parent of a previous student, then that might be okay, right? It's
But I-
$50 by a
Because the
parent
relationship.
of a student, right? But a previous student, there shouldn't be a conflict of interest. But at any rate, yeah, the point's a procedural one, though.
Yeah.
I think David should generate a letter expressing the board's view about this stuff being need to work out internally following the new process, and only if there's problems after that process does stuff come here.
Okay.
And he'll have that ready by the weekend.
I'm sure I will, yeah. Yeah, don't hold your breath.
Well, that's provided he finds his dog.
Oh,
Mhm.
no, Julie's dog?
Well, I found it, found her,
Keith found it.
wandering the neighborhood last night.
I also
Under,
do-
under one of the wheels of your car. Keith?
No, no.
Well, he
I
came
was-
home really late, so he was working
Well,
hard.
I had screaming kids. And I was in
What?
bailing out, yes, I was in bailing out Michelle. Then I came out and I thought, where's my dog? And then I hear this knocking on the door. There's Keith, here's your dog. It was very convenient.
Yeah, looking for your dog?
It was very convenient.
The neighbor down the street's not gonna be real happy when they find the pile in the yard. So.
Is that where she was?
Yes.
No, it's not my yard.
Okay, so is this something you want me to work on? And
Well,
should
think
I
there's a
wait
motion-
and bring
I
it
think there's a
back?
motion on the table to make an assignment to the vice chair.
Really?
Second.
Not
Make
it.
a motion and second it.
Aye.
What needs to be done?
What we have is this notice needed to use the new form, which is actually on the back side of this one here, which you haven't gotten to, or it's,
Mm-hmm.
and it should have gone within the school district system, not to us.
I think the new policy is that principals are supposed to review this stuff first, and only if there's a question does it come to us. But we're getting this stuff directly, it looks like, from
Well,
teachers.
and-
So there needs to be some
Mm.
education about, hey, there's a new process in town,
Yeah.
and the new process is you to work internally at your school before anything comes.
I think we just have a standard letter that Lisa sends back. If they show
Are we
up.
getting that many of them?
I don't know, it doesn't look like it.
That's the first one.
Yeah, but again, I think.
We
if
thought we
she-
had another one, but it was
If she's
actually-
already used it, then she's gonna have to ask for an exception. And really, the only remedy is to, well, if she did, I mean, it says don't use it. This must not be used prior to review and approval.
It's unlikely.
But to me,
she's
it's
used it.
obvious that she hasn't been trained because she's using an
Yeah,
old form.
Right.
And she's there's no addressing the new code and what she's doing here, so obviously she doesn't
I'm
even
wondering
know.
whether she's been
Who
trained
is
in
she?
the
Is she
office.
the
She gets the
principal?
form from the
No.
staff.
No, she's just a teacher.
How is the new form distributed?
Yeah, it'd be through the,
Well, what we did was, the administration person called me and asked me for the new form because I disconnected it online so nobody could get the old form.
Okay.
And so they were like, oh, we're putting together our packet, we need the form. And I said, you know, right now it's in draft and we need the Board of Ethics to approve it. It was, you know, through that process we were doing.
Right.
And as soon as you guys approved the form, I sent it to her directly, and then I opened up the link. So they should have pushed out all those forms, but who knows how many schools maybe have these like already
Just print it off
copied
in
and
the
in
file.
Sure,
their.
and they're just
Or-
in the
In
staff.
the desk.
Or
Right.
teachers have it on their computer and they print it off and fill it out.
Right.
Kinda like I do my new form at work, which is probably 3 iterations old, but, you know.
They still approve of your leave.
It still works.
Yeah,
So-
when they say no, you can't go.
Yeah, that's-
so what was it?
3 weeks
They
after
wanted
you
to
get
send it
back.
back?
So we need to push them back and get them
Yeah.
aware of policy.
I would just
and-
say a simple letter saying, please use the new form.
And submit it to the proper.
and-
I think a
and
phone
follow-
call would be perfectly suitable.
Yeah. I mean, either way, it doesn't need to be a lengthy letter, it just needs to be, please use the new form, see attached, and follow the new policy.
Okay, I'll
Maybe-
find the
maybe
policy.
Could we should we send this to principals or to?
Ooh, maybe we should send it to the principal.
Well, right, I mean, they're the
Well,
ones who are.
Yeah.
I don't think it's our job to do that. I think our job is to deal with the superintendent, let the superintendent deal with his principals.
Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, but it would be, it looks like some education in the system's necessary.
Or to go
So
through
I think
superintendent, or would you
principals
send it to?
Yeah,
Charlotte?
because then the principal would be aware
Yeah.
that, oh, in my school I have people that don't understand there's a new policy.
Because it's more that if the principal's not aware, if this teacher came to the principal, hey, I got this gift, what do I do? Oh, here you go, here's the form.
Right.
Pulls out of her drawer, you know, the form from
Right.
last year, 2 years ago, and then voila, here we have it. So the principals need to find out, and so yeah, if we wanna just try to work through the superintendent, or if we just wanna go ahead and, how many principals are there?
There's a lot.
Several hundred.
Several, yeah.
Well, a lot of schools have.
Well, there's several dozen for sure, if you're talking about head principals.
But we're going to see the exceptions. The ones that are coming into us are gonna be the ones that
Well, don't even
obviously are
accept it.
uneducated.
So how do you get these, by email? They show up?
Email,
This was
fax,
Yeah.
sent in, all kinds of ways.
Yeah.
Do they do they have some giant listserv that you can email all ASD employees?
Well, I'm sure they do.
You would think they would, right? I mean,
Yeah, but the training part was up to them, you
Yeah.
know?
That was the reason we delayed
Yeah.
the implementation until after
That's
7/1, because they needed
They
to train their
needed the
people.
training.
So maybe just a short letter back to the principal of this teacher saying that the new form needs to be used.
Why not a short letter to the superintendent?
And then, well, but I think we need to address this one, we have one. And then a
If we
more-
see a trend, because one is not a
But,
trend.
then I think,
realize that,
but a more strategic letter now to the superintendent as a
Okay,
reminder.
that will take care of Rogers,
Yeah,
Rogers Park.
yeah.
Next month, we may get one in from Scenic View.
Then we
Right.
have a template, we can,
Just,
If we're gonna send a letter, why don't we just CC the superintendent, let him,
Okay.
keep them in the loop?
yeah, that's fine.
This is what we're doing,
Yeah.
just to keep you in the loop of
Yeah.
what.
Or basically, close to the same letter could just be
Right.
tuned up a little bit for the superintendent. I mean, basically, the substance would be almost exactly the same, saying that there seems to be some misunderstanding.
It's
about how the
actually-
process now
Well, and I
works.
hope the fact that we only have one this time is an
Todd Hess
indication that it's working.
is actually the guy who's the director of personnel, so he's probably gonna do, yeah, I know. Who is gonna be the one responsible for following up.
okay.
Yeah, we'll see, because this is our slow season
Yeah.
for these anyway, though.
Right.
It's, you know, the school's just a month in or so, and
There won't be December.
December, that'll be the test. In January, we get,
So this is our opportunity to develop a process for us, a procedure
Yes.
for us, to push back.
Which is don't accept.
Yeah, don't accept them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's the procedure.
So, so we're sending this one back, and we're asking for a new one from her with the new.
Not
we're
to
asking
We
us.
want her to follow the new
No,
process.
to the.
Yeah, we
okay.
should never see it again.
You should never see
Yeah.
most of these.
I mean, Dee might see it to sign off on it, I guess, right? Or who?
He
Well,
signed off
because
on
the other
this
one was a
one.
police officer,
Well, so, but who would sign off for it here then?
designated ethics officer, which Glenda's looked up, right?
That's what I'm told.
So if this person had used the new form,
Yeah.
asked for an exception,
Right.
had gotten their ethics officer to sign off
Yeah.
on it, we'd just be looking at it and going, okay,
We wouldn't have seen it.
they, well.
Would it
we
never
still
even
s-
come to us?
I don't
I
think
think-
it would have even come to us. It wouldn't have to.
I mean,
When-
I'm
when
assuming,
would it-
I'm assuming
When
you
would
gave
it
it,
come to us if the ethics officer did not approve it?
Right, or the principal.
I would just think it
Okay.
would be informational. Like this, I
Like
assume
this
the
one
one
here.
that Dee signed was.
Do we have to pull the tax records of our
Yeah.
ethics officer?
But you know,
to make sure
the
that
question
she's
is,
not on the take?
the exception has to be granted by the municipal board of ethics, which is us, right?
Mhm.
Or the municipal ethics officer, so it can't be approved by anybody in the school district.
Mhm.
I think this is a perfect example because it was all taken care of correctly.
Right.
And we are just, this is FYI for us.
Mhm.
And we just take a look at it and go, okay, great.
But was that our intent? Was that if a school district employee asked for an exception, that it had to be approved outside of the school district?
Well, the school districts
No.
can designate.
Well,
So
but they.
There can be designated ethics officers outside.
But according to our
And each-
form, the exception has to be granted by either this board or a municipal, so we're saying that
They
an
can be
ethics officer in
designated.
the school district can also be termed a
Yes.
municipal ethics
Yeah.
officer.
So
Okay,
that
gotcha.
just means that,
Okay.
that you can have
Okay, all right.
designees everywhere.
Okay, all right. So
And they
yeah, we
wouldn't
should
have to give it to us, but if we
Yeah.
did get it, it could just be FYI.
Right, but if they do give it to us, it needs to be completely filled out
Right,
with no action required on our part.
I think so.
So
That's
that's,
right.
I mean,
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
are they gonna, are we gonna get a copy of it? To at least, no action required, but a copy from someone approving of the exception?
so we can see how many they approve.
Do you want to?
We probably should.
I'm kinda curious. I mean, are we
This is-
completely
yeah.
eliminating all involvement from our, I mean, when would they ever contact us?
If-
If-
Except it
We
doesn't-
could approve it instead of a municipal.
If the
Ethics
ethics officer
officer.
or the principal
Has a
doesn't-
question.
has a question, then they forward it to us.
We really should keep tabs on this, shouldn't we? I don't wanna sign off on it, but I would be curious to know where the exceptions are being approved.
So do you know who their ethics officer is in the
No.
school district?
Do you know who all of them? Yeah, I mean,
Is
there's
there
only one.
We're developing a list.
Yeah, so I would say that we ask for a quarterly or monthly
Just copy.
update or whatever, copies or,
Get one, send it in.
I would wanna
Yeah.
just kind of keep an eye on things.
so we can see if they're abusing it.
Well, and anything that I get in, it becomes a part of our record.
Right, but this would be only if we received it.
Right.
There's no requirement, I don't think, for them to submit this to us, right?
And that's helpful at the end when we do the report for statistics. If you want to keep.
Oh, no, it
recording
does say that, for review by the Board of Ethics, file this form with your municipal clerk's office. So they have to give it to us. There's already a
Oh.
requirement on the
Okay.
form.
Oh, right, that has to be filed with the clerk's
Yeah,
office.
it says right there.
Okay.
Right, the last.
Guess we
Guess
should
we
know our
should
own form.
Yeah, we should, yeah. Well, it took us, a while to develop it.
Okay,
So we should
we
receive all
should be
of it.
receiving them.
So maybe just a
Okay.
reminder, say periodically, just whoever at the school districts our point of contact to make sure those are filed. This
Okay,
is
so
gonna-
are we gonna send a quick letter back then?
I think we
okay.
should.
Yeah. We'll just
Okay.
push these back and make them do it the right way.
Okay.
So we need to accept all of them except for this one. By motion.
Do we have a motion?
Which one, well, actually, we only need to accept, the first one, right? Actually, none of them.
You were second.
Well, the first one was a group one, which.
Right,
So it's
we're-
an
we're
old
accepting
code
the-
and we.
And this one was just information, right?
But if we're gonna review them, we need to
Yeah.
accept them.
Yeah, that was my idea, is that
Yeah.
you're accepting all but the one from the tickets.
So
and
we're accepting,
sending
we're
it
not
back.
approving.
Correct.
Right.
Okay. Did somebody move that?
So
Did you move that?
Ted moved it.
Ted did. Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Any opposed? We can move on to, what is it, 7A now?
8A?
Eight
We're in
A.
7A, but we gotta
Oh,
go
we're still
on to
in 7A.
disclosures.
On to more disclosures here.
Oh,
Mm.
There's a couple in here.
Just two.
I don't see any issues, but personally. elevator all the way down.
Are we doing them by section?
Yeah, by section. So there's only two for the next.
So, move approval of the.
Second.
Two.
Move in second to approve the disclosure of economic interest.
Oh, yeah, you know, I was wondering for the Joseph Miller one, if we should send him or that commission, just a letter, you know, sort of reminder that disclosure alone is not enough. Like, the idea is that he has to disclose and allow the board to make a determination if his conflict of interest is prejudicial, and then he may, and if so, then he may not participate in the matter. So that just he just may have left that out to be brief, but it's
That's
not
true.
enough just to simply say, I've got this conflict, I've got this potential conflict, and I'll always disclose it before we talk about these particular kinds of items. It's not just disclosure, it has to be then reviewed by that commission as to whether his conflict is prejudicial.
What section is that in?
30, right, it's an appointed body.
Okay.
So, who made the motion?
I don't think there is one yet.
Well, no.
Well, we have to back off that
We
one.
have to, I was asking
I'm
if,
a-
would you accept the
Yes.
amendment to your motion?
Yes.
And the second?
Second.
Yes. Okay.
So who's doing that?
I think David's gonna do that.
No.
I think
I'm already
the-
doing one.
I think the,
I'll do that
I
one.
think the amendment maker.
I withdraw my amendment.
That would be an easy one for you, though, Terry.
Okay, you're drafting a letter.
Yes.
Okay.
Make
So
all-
we're only
make all the-
accepting
Add it to his list of.
one
work.
of them.
No, we're accepting
We can
both.
accept, we
Oh,
can
who's
accept
above-
it, but I'll.
But do you
I'll
notice that
shoot
he
you-
used the old form?
Oh, did he?
Oh, you're right.
Yep.
Mhm.
Tell him we'll excuse him this once in the letter. You're excused for using the 7-year-old form.
Which was probably given to him by the secretary of his, of his
So there's-
board.
So they're accepted, but there's going to be an accompanying letter of clarification
Okay.
from Mr. Kelly.
Okay, any opposed? Hearing none, that motion is carried. So we're under 8A now?
Mhm.
What else do we have?
Okay, those are conflicts.
Purchasing.
There's 3 different ones.
I missed it in my book.
And make note of the one whose name is Kim, or the wife's name is Kim. Where is it at?
It's the first one.
It's the second one.
Oh, well, I've got one, my wife's name is Kim.
Oh, sorry, it's the first one. You're right.
Kim's Music Mania.
Yeah, because this is the proper way to disclose your conflict. This person also came in and wanted to fill out a notice of intent to respond to public solicitation. And I tried to tell her, you don't need to do this. You know, you just need to do this conflict thing. And she still wanted to do it. So we've got 2 more that I think they're getting direction from ASD to do these notices, which we have already reviewed and said they don't need to be doing them. So, I don't know if we need to revisit it. It's confusing me.
So we have more than one.
Yeah, we have 3 different ones there.
Andrea, but they also, so this is, they both filled the same form.
Yeah. They all have the
And
same.
your contention is this is unnecessary?
Oh, for the notices of intent? Yeah.
Where was that? Oh,
Because
next.
they're not responding to public solicitation from the municipality. They're just trying to declare that they're going to be doing some work with ASD, but there's also this other employment, and that's expressing a potential conflict. But they
Okay.
keep getting pushed into, somebody's pushing them in the direction of doing these notices of intent. And these numbers that they're putting in, these are actual ASD numbers.
Could that be purchasing, ASD purchasing?
Yes, that's what
That ITS
the
number?
letter says.
Mhm.
It's an Anchorage School Board policy. Requires a school district employee to immediate family wishes to do business, they must disclose this, and then he goes on to say that they have no influence over such and such. And this, and it says, is forwarded for your information, and that's what we wanted them to do, just forward it for our information. Even
That's the appropriate.
they've stated in there that they don't feel that, the school board district employee stated that, you know, they don't feel that there's any conflict of interest there, but they're forwarding it just for our information, and that's.
But do we need to make them pay a $15 fine every year, or fee every year to do that? Wasn't that what you were trying, your
Right.
point?
Right, and I went online to look at what they're being told to do when they're applying for these jobs that they have on ASD. And they're saying at one point, when a board member or a household member, blah, 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 they must file this form with the clerk's office. And they put, notice of intent to respond to public solicitation shall be filed.
Well, that might
Well,
be.
yeah,
There
'cause
is
if-
no public solicitation that's
There is no-
done.
right.
Do you know what this reference is, ITS 2014-09, do you know what that refers to?
That refers to, on their website, they have a place where they've got, jobs
Mhm.
that they're
Oh,
listing.
So it's like a vacancy number?
Yeah, yeah.
Ah,
And they're
okay.
applying for that position, even though they already have a position in the municipality.
Because what we want is this other form here necessarily. That just tells us where they might have a conflict.
Right. But they've got it on their website to fill out this form, and I just don't think,
But if Kimberly's getting work, if Kimberly Carlson is getting work with ASD, then she must be getting it through a contract that's been publicly solicited.
by ASD.
Well, it's on their website. Is
Or
that
it might
pub-
just be a part-time job posting.
So is that public solicitation?
I don't know.
Or is it competitively solicited? Right, so the code says that if you are a household member of an ASD employee, municipal employee, you may not do business with the city unless it is competitively solicited. So if you wanna do, that's probably why they're being told they've gotta fill out the form, because they're not allowed to be getting work otherwise.
You know, it's probably,
So
and
not-
and
they're
it's
not
probably.
allowed.
But these are employees, not contracts.
Well, this is the wife though,
This
this
is-
is the wife, so she's not the employee, she's a member of a household
Yeah.
that has the employee, so it covers her too.
Right.
So she's prohibited from getting
if they're-
non-competitively bid
Yeah.
work.
And if
with her
they're-
spouse. The only work she should be getting is competitively bid, and competitively bid work requires her to fill out
Right.
the notice to apply for that bid.
And for doing private music lessons, it's probably a part-time job posting that's open until filled, which would indicate it's not really competitive, because it's probably, you apply, they evaluate you, they, you know, it hasn't,
You know,
It has
probably,
no-
it's
Yeah.
probably too
You're
small
not
time to
comparing
be
Yeah.
publicly, that's
yeah.
right.
Because the day one that we keep pushing back, because
Yeah.
she's just doing tutoring services.
Right, that's what came to mind.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, this is a quirk, we've dealt with this one before, it's a
This
little
is
quirk.
tricky.
When we go, the rifle, the shooting coach up at service, were you on the board when we had him?
Oh, yeah.
Remember, it was a similar.
He's the only one who can pick
He's
air
the
pistols?
only one, yeah, he's the only one that can fix the air rifles unless
Yeah.
you ship them out of state, exorbitant costs, that basically end the rifle team, right?
Yeah.
But strictly speaking, he was not, allowed to do that by, now we sort of, by fiat, as I recall, sort of made an exception because there was just no other practical way for it to get done.
So what is
But
that?
there's a potential problem here, that the code might be forbidding her, if she's getting work not through a competitive bid process, then the code, I think, forbids her from getting it, and that's,
Which is why she has to do the request for intent to.
well, that's why she's
respond.
at least being told she needs to do that, she's being
And
told she needs.
does that solve the problem?
Not if there's not
No.
actually a competitive bid process that she's a part of, right? I mean, so in other words, you have to
But-
disclose that you're gonna be a part of this competitive, with the theory being that the public knows that, if it looks like the outcome's fishy, that there was a potential conflict here.
So
But
define.
if there's no actual competitive process going on,
So
she's
def-
disclosing for something.
So
else.
define a competitive process in the hire of a job that can allow for multiple people to fill it at any one time. Are you competitive against the requirements for the position, or is it being competitive against other people who also apply for it?
Yeah, I mean, usual idea is that there's multiple bids being put in,
Yeah.
right? And then purchasing or someone makes a decision about which one's the best one. Now, for a part-time job,
Or they're not necessarily looking for the one best one, they're looking for a group of people willing to meet the requirements for what they're doing.
right?
And that's the process of this form. I mean, this form will tell you, turn this into the purchasing department, you know, and have them sign off.
That's right.
This is just not
It's-
what
it's
that, the
not-
intent
it's
of
not
what
the
they're.
model. But if she's, if she's signing a contract with the city, which if she's getting paid, I assume she is, the code, I think, forbids her to do that, right? No municipal employee or member of the employee's household shall acquire directly or indirectly an economic interest in a municipal contract or engage in business with the municipality unless the municipal contract is competitively solicited and all other requirements of this chapter are satisfied.
So it's not a if it's a job posting, it's not a solicitation for a contract.
See, that's the problem.
Yeah, and I would argue it's not business, it's employment. So it's neither one of those two. I would
Mm.
argue it's part-time employment.
But she probably has a contract, right?
I would say it's, I don't know, I mean, so teachers have a contract. I would say a part-time employee probably does not have a contract, per se.
Per se.
Well, for example, you're probably given, okay, so it's a contract.
I mean, I don't know, you've got a meeting in mind, you've got
I got the
consideration.
lawyer, I have the lawyer beaming down on it. I'm like, I'm not gonna wiggle out of this one. Okay, I'll give it, yeah.
So then it's not okay for somebody to, oh, I have 2 jobs with ASD. I do this and I do that.
Well, but those might have been competitively recruited. And I
How
would
about the
argue
history coach history teacher who's also the football coach?
Those are competitively recruited.
Are they?
Well, I would argue that there's an end date where they will accept applications, which to me means it's competitive. If you're leaving it just open until filled, then, if we get an applicant today, we evaluate that applicant, and if you want multiple people to do the work, then you're like, yeah, this person will work. And then 3 days later, another person comes in who's 5 times better than the person 3 days before, where if you were doing it competitively, you would have taken this person and not this person, but you've already taken this person, so now you take this person too. So I would say if it's part-time employment and you're doing it open until filled, it's not really competitive. But I don't know.
Can this be viewed, the ITS 2014-09, the reference numbers, is that something that could be accessed and viewed? Could we do that? So that, I think that might help move the process along, to determine if it is, if you click on it, you open it, and it's a vacancy announcement for part-time job.
Yeah, and this
or
is
if
part
it's
of
a-
it.
That's part
That's
of it.
part of it. I just copied off the page. Oh, sorry. Can you
look
pass
at-
that down?
Can you go to the school district
It's
website?
like,
and
it's
look
like
at under the
20
employment
pages
listings?
long.
Okay.
And that's
Right.
part of
Yeah.
it. It's kind of like a contract they
You should be able to
They
find
give
that
for
on
each
the
little-
website somewhere.
solicitation.
Is that the posting number for the job?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that's this right here.
Yeah.
Or at least a portion
Part
of
of
it.
it.
So it's not a request for solicitation of sealed bids or anything
No.
like that? Okay.
No, and I think if anything, if you get down to just the basics, this is not the form. It's almost like they need to develop their own form.
And they all reference the same 2014-09 in these two.
How, so there's a posting for this position,
Mhm.
and people apply.
Mhm.
Actually, it might be an open-ended contract, because this one refers to it as education services. The
So-
second one does.
What makes it competitively bid? Say 6 different people want to do this. And is it just simply because they choose, not based on, I mean, what, you asked the question earlier, what makes
Yeah.
it a competitive bid? I mean, what if a bunch of people apply, but is it because meaning the district has the ability to choose this person, that maybe this person has an inside track on this position?
I think it's probably more, if it's really an open until filled, or actually, that's even a bad term, continuous. So there's a lot of times you'll see postings that just say continuous, meaning they're always accepting
Always looking
applications.
for those.
And So I would say it's, they evaluate each applicant, they might do applicant evaluations on a Friday.
Mhm.
So anything that came in from Monday to Friday, they evaluate them on Friday, they say, yeah, this person will work, this person won't work. The question is, how do they get the work after they are
After they're
hired
selected,
or
really?
selected?
Yeah.
Yeah, do they generate their own business at that point?
Yeah.
Or do students and parents select them through some process? Yeah, I don't know. This was part of a posting,
It's like about 20 pages when you click on each of them.
so it is some
It'll
sort
take
of.
you longer to read the form than it does to read the
Yeah.
rule than it does to do the job.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it is instructions.
So it is some sort of a,
Is it what is it?
well, it's gotta be some sort of a solicitation, I mean, you wouldn't have that as part of a job posting.
You have to fill out parts of it, and then parts of it are instructions, and then
Yeah.
to instruct you to do other steps, and use other
So these
forms,
are
and one of the
questions.
ones they're saying to use is this notice of intent.
Yeah, so the
And
question
it's-
is what is it considered competitive or not?
I mean, it's not to the point where the guy says, I'll do this for $18 an hour, and somebody else says to do it for 19, then the school district selects the most.
Well, it probably
cost-effective.
directs the rate.
Yeah.
My guess is that it
Yeah.
probably says
How
you
can
will
it
be
be
paid this
competitive?
much.
Yeah.
So it's not,
Competitive based on what?
well, so it's competitive based on you have to have the skills to do the job.
But
You
not
can-
necessarily the value, the highest value to the school district.
Well, they're all getting paid the same amount
Mhm.
anyway, probably, is my guess.
He's an HVAC technician?
Well, that's his,
No, I know
Yeah.
that's what he does.
yeah.
I don't want us to get hung up
I
on
just hate
it.
laboring over this stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do you want me to do some research and bring this back,
I think they're doing,
or
You know.
ignore it?
well, I think they're doing due diligence. I mean, I don't think they're trying to do anything wrong. I mean,
So like the Lede one, we could just accept them, and,
I don't have any problem accepting it, really.
Are you willing to make that motion?
So we can actually talk about the issue. It doesn't have to be on the table first before we can talk about it, so, yeah. I'll move that we accept, how many are there?
Well, you see, there's a set of 4, because you have,
well, there's the conflicts and then the notices of intent, so there's
So
three
there's three
conflicts.
So, yeah, I make a motion that we accept the 3 disclosures of conflict of interest.
What are the other ones?
That's
Oh.
the notices of intent that go along with the conflicts of interest.
Disclosure of conflicts.
And these are just disclosing conflicts of interest, which that's
Position accompanying.
that's a matter of fact.
Yeah,
I mean,
but-
we're not
Or that-
approving their employment. We're just
what is FPCS?
family partnership charter
They're
school.
offering services to parents and students, and so does that mean that the parents and students, like you said, pick and choose?
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. But again, all we're doing is accepting that they've disclosed something, right? We're not accepting with these disclosures.
Right, disclosure of
Yeah.
conflict.
My assumption is they probably, the parents select.
Mhm. Wayne has no influence on the ability of his wife's company to obtain school district business. Should any occasion arise wherein he might have such an opportunity, he will remove himself from the selection process. Teacher, okay, happy?
Happy, yeah.
Happy?
Happy.
Accordingly, the attached disclosures will have
Get a motion.
a future family partnership is forwarded to your. As long as Happy will have no influence on the ability of her immediate family's company to obtain school district business. She will have no influence. She will have no influence or has no influence. Should any occasion arise where she might, she will remove herself. David has no influence on the ability of his wife's company to obtain business. Boy, I don't see it. But,
Well, I mean, these three, again, they're just disclosing something.
yeah.
I mean,
Which is what we ask them to do.
all right. Yeah. If there's a problem with their procurement process, I don't know if that's our issue to engage in or not.
Right.
Yeah, that would be something for like a city ethics board.
Yeah.
I totally
Yeah. Or school district ethics. Well, why can't procurement do it?
Oh, I can't wait for the ethics board.
Yeah. I don't see anything unethical. I think they're going
Oh, I
overboard.
think-
I think they're going overboard to try to show that they're, they're doing what they think they need to do based on the parameters of what they have.
Yeah, I think the immediate question for Lisa is that these people, some of them are coming to her saying, I also have been told I need to fill out a
Notice.
notice of what was, and I think the answer there is yes, that they do in fact need to fill that
Okay.
out. And the code actually requires that there is in fact a competitive solicitation process going
Mhm.
on. So the code, whether it's ethical or not, I mean, you can see the potential conflict of interest, but the code actually forbids these people to be able to do work with the city unless there's a competitively bid process.
Did you find
And
that,
maybe there
did
is.
you find that solicitation on their website?
I did not know.
You did.
Well, it's been filled.
Well, the one's been filled, so it wouldn't be a vacancy. And
Well,
the
these
other
are-
ones, I bet you the other ones are such small.
No, these
time
are all,
stuff.
these are all the same, there's the same ones, so my guess is they're accepting multiple, both these are the same number. So my guess is they're accepting multiple, applications. And it's probably a general enough request, because one of them is providing, if I remember right,
One, music lessons.
and one's doing like photography or art or something. So,
But which one has the same number?
well, so,
We
on the
actually
first
have
one
three
is
of them.
ITS 2014-09, and the next one is ITS 2014-09. Nope, go to the disclosure, go to the, notices of intent, next page. So now these two
Oh, okay, here we
relate
go.
back to two of the three, and then the next one has the exact same number. And this includes tutoring. So the tutoring lady probably applied under the same,
Yeah. Yeah.
way back when.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably 2013, something, but.
So does multiple applications, can that be considered competitive?
Well, yeah, I mean, if there's one position and you get more than one, you can make that feeling of it.
Well, I think
I
it's.
mean, they're not bidding,
Well,
but they're,
and the school district isn't going out and asking people, and giving people work without going through an application process, which in and of itself is a competitive process. I mean, you have to fill out the form, you have to meet the minimum requirements. So they might go find somebody and say, hey, would you like to teach music? Oh, that's a good idea, maybe I would. Well, you need to go and fill out the application. So to me, I would consider it a competitive process. Is there a definition of competitive process in the code?
Well, let's see. What's interesting is that she checked the box, neither I nor a member of my family will take or has any official action with respect to preparations. Oh, solicitors.
In other words, they
Or
don't approve the
administrative.
job.
Right. Right.
Which I find was odd, because in the letter it says, well, they will remove themselves from the process if they find themselves doing that, which I'm.
and as you can see, we have a new form and an old form.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa, were you able to electronically publish these?
Mhm.
So you got these outside?
Mhm.
Okay.
Everything's updated on our website and
Oh, okay, well, that-
Must have been pretty meaty for a 10-minute meeting for the
Yeah,
last
I
50
know.
minutes.
What's the next one, 115?
Good?
I suppose so, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
So they do need to fill it out.
they do, yeah.
And
they
it
do,
needs
yeah,
to be
that's
for,
great.
it needs to be for a particular,
And it needs to be for each one,
Posted.
and folks who, if they
Yeah.
wanna file for a waiver, they can ask us to give them a year or two waiver. If they're doing enough, those they don't have to pay $15 a copy each time.
right.
But-
Yeah, my guess is this solicitation is probably good for the whole academic year.
It does, this form says it has to be done once a year. The other disclosure
Yeah.
expired
So,
June 30th.
do you think I should try to develop a form for ASD, or just continue with this?
I don't think we need more forms.
Okay.
I think this one works fine, and and they've identified what solicitation number.
If they use the new form, it works fine. The old form is,
Oh, yeah, what does it say about this being okay for 1 year? Where was that? I saw
I'm
that.
looking at the old form, and it says on the bottom, in accordance with school board policy section, disclosures expire on June 30th of the year. The disclosure must be renewed if it's going to be performed next year.
You're talking about the
That's on the
disclosure.
disclosure
Yeah,
form.
right.
Under this, oh, okay.
And it's also, that's also, okay, on the disclosure form, it's on both of these, because it's the same form.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the code says that they have to at least send out a new notice every solicitation.
Which they, for this,
So
they
it's
try.
not, yeah, it's not for a whole year. We can do that, but they can't unilaterally do that.
And for this particular work, they probably do it once a year. So, did we vote on approving the disclosure statements?
no, the disclosures of conflict of interest,
No one-
you have a motion.
Just for the disclosure statements,
Mhm.
but nobody seconded it, right?
Second.
Okay.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve the disclosure statements. Any opposed? None. Then let me go back to my agenda. I'm getting off.
Well, now we're to the notices of
Move
intent.
approval of the two notices of intent to
Second.
respond to
I'm
public.
gonna motion in a second. Any opposed? Hearing none, those are approved.
Okay. All right, what are the other sheets?
Thought we got into the school district stuff.
Oh, under that same 7A is that thing about the list of designated ethics officers. So I don't know if, Dee, if you wanted to clarify with Linda about that, because I think there's some.
Under
Oh,
7A?
it's 7A 5C.
It's been the sort of the goal of the city through.
It's not in the book.
Oh, okay, through a P&P.
You're all, you're not.
Yeah, I'm like,
Everyone's feverishly.
I don't see
waiting.
the, I don't see the extra numbers.
Anyway, it's been the goal of the city, and it's in a P&P on ethics, that the preferred way to go is to have an ethics officer assigned to each sort of grouping of employees. So maybe in public works, maybe in health and human services, one for the police, one for fire, because they will be more sensitive to the issues that are faced by them, do a much better conflict of interest analysis than I would do. And we've been forever been trying to update that. As soon as we get someone appointed to that, the mayor has to appoint them, then there's been turnover. So 2 people that were supposed to be appointed about 6 months ago have already turned over. So I just keep putting it off. But it's a matter of getting 6 or 8 of these people together. They would traditionally in the past that they had met once a month for training and for doing much of what you're doing with stuff that's not delegated. I think they mostly are good about when people have 2 jobs at the same time, or the contract issues, conflict of interest, that they don't get into anything else but that type of issue. And so I'm not sure how that came back before the board, but I had said, yeah, I need to do that. I think that's when I was being too busy to really fully service this board, but now that we're Glenda, it seems less important to me to have that. Although in certain areas, such as APD, I think it's very helpful. But for instance, the APD person who used to do it, Stephen Smith, just went, and now he's, I think, Nana's chief security officer or something.
Really?
Yeah. So I would take that off the agenda, but that's just something I think the city is working toward, and it's a matter of me getting them appointed and then following through on a monthly basis.
Do you know how many different divisions?
It's up to us, and before there were about 6 or 7 officers that did it. Really what's happening now is they just call through to us, and, but they can really handle most of their own conflict,
So that's why we saw the one with your signature on it.
probably, yeah.
We really have a problem with that one, by the way.
Uh-oh.
We spent about 45 minutes on it.
What one was it?
As the police officer.
Police officer.
Which one?
They're not supposed to
I,
accept
you
anything.
have no
$5
idea
gift
how many I
cards.
signed, oh, that one.
Yeah.
And they were so
Yeah.
forthright.
So you signed a lot, but only one of them submitted it to the board. So is that gonna be the process? Because we were talking about that.
It can't be
Were we
the
gonna be
process.
No, they,
seeing
I
all
think
of
that
them,
you
or-
see the ones that come up. I mean, over the years, I've signed quite a few of them.
Oh, okay.
The
Yeah.
form requires them to submit
it
it
then
to
gets
the
put back
clerk's
up. Okay.
office, yeah.
Although you bring up a good point, because if people email me, do I feel something's a conflict of interest, and unless it has a formal filing requirement, I don't think it's coming back toward the board.
Okay.
That's what, if you see it, that's
Yeah, so, but I could try to figure out which
I just-
ones those are.
I just have this image of there being these ethics officers out floating around.
Take
you
your
know,
kickbacks.
signing exceptions, getting fur coats and plane tickets
Yeah.
to diamonds.
Yeah.
No, because they,
I'm not really
Cruise
worried about
tic-
that, but-
Cruise tickets and. yeah,
But that's what we were
fishing
talking about,
charters.
having some kind of way of at least having the approvals.
Come back through you?
Just kind of filtering through to keep an eye on the exceptions that
Yeah.
are being signed off on.
yeah, and they are that kind of an exception. Anything that requires formal disclosure now would come back up through you. And I guess I need to be more cognizant of that, though. Are there things I'm signing off on of which you're not aware?
'Cause, well, that one was something that, you know, it was clearly, one, he's a police officer, he's not allowed to accept anything. Two, I mean, and the bottom line, you know, the way it was being handled was being donated to,
Oh, yeah, there was
Yeah, that was
nothing.
fine.
Yeah.
That was a
But-
perfect example of how it should be
Right.
working.
So I would say, Dee, these have to come to the clerk's office, and if you're signing them as the.
As the ethics person.
Yeah, since I would just ask that these get put into our folder whenever they're completed,
Yeah.
just as information.
And how, by the way, I got involved in that is that Barbara Jones read this as saying that,
That's to be the board or
that,
an ethics
yeah, that I
officer.
could sign it so they could
Yeah.
go ahead and give them
Mhm.
back.
Right.
Yeah.
That she's the one that insisted on.
But I
signing.
would argue too that if they had their own ethics officer, that officer could have done it as well, so I'm
Right.
assuming they don't have one.
No,
Right.
he just left.
Yeah, so. But if that person did sign it, it still needs to be
Come
filed
back
with the
up
clerk's
through you.
office,
Yeah.
so, and then we would see them,
Yeah, that makes sense.
so.
Well, and I have a very interesting one that I could tell you about if I could get on the agenda.
Oh, sure, Keith has been unilaterally changing the agenda.
Yeah, fine.
However you
After
can
we
affect
approve-
that.
is there any objection to allow, because she has to leave here in about 12
Well, and
minutes?
that really is a 5-minute meeting, and I'm getting signatures.
Sure. So is there any objection to allowing Dee to intercede into the?
No objection.
No? Okay, well, this was an interesting one. Widener Properties, who are a
Oh.
multi-million-dollar developer, asked if they could take 3 assembly people and 9 of our employees down to Seattle to go look at different projects. And it would be in their private jet, and they would foot the bill for a couple days. Well, in fact, remember, we took that portion out of the employee gift rewrite, and we said we took that out to deal with later on. At my bequest saying, wait a minute, employees going to other places for training and conferences, that's written into a lot of contracts already, that we have to be part of the modern world. That's how people get training, probably outside our bailiwick, to explore all of those instances. So we had taken it out of the gift rewrite. So for them, I said, well, as to the employee, it's not part of the ethics code, but you still have the overriding ethical concern of appearance of impropriety, of conflict of interest, that kind of stuff. With respect to the assembly members, they actually have a little carve-out in their code section that says travel at a discount and accommodations are okay. Boom. And so they in fact, I was talking to Dennis Wheeler about that, and he said, oh, look, they have a carve-out. Isn't that interesting? I mean, he was sort of surprised at that. So initially, when I talked to Widener, and this is for a trip in a week, so it's time sensitive, I said, well, a cautious okay, but we still have to look at the conflict of interest concerns. And sure enough, our planning director, Jerry Weaver, called me back and said, no, I don't like it. They have too much business with us, too much coming up, so it's going to be said no to them. But, that would have been a difficult one for you to weigh in on. he knows more of the day-to-day stuff about whether it would be appearance of impropriety. So that's one that came to me separate.
Well, if you recall, we were asked when we discussed Racine about a time when a school board member flew to Juneau on,
On the company's time, right?
well, no, it was actually on Ed Rasmussen's jet.
Oh, okay.
But the purpose for what she was doing, we didn't have any issue. But what I would have a problem, especially if an assembly member went out and then extended a trip to go someplace else, and they got to Seattle using somebody else who actually does city work with the city. I could see where the issue could be. Now, I'm not aware of all the business that Whitener has with the city, so I don't know what the conflict.
Major
is.
developer.
Yeah.
Yeah, they own
The
almost
most
all of the
major, yeah.
apartment complexes, don't they?
I would say that if they went on this trip and then something came before the
They wouldn't be able to
assembly,
vote on it?
where the assembly would have to vote at it, that particular assembly person would have to
Disclose,
Yeah,
disclose.
and then give it to the assembly to vote on whether they participate.
Right. I have to say, I'm not sure about it, that they would be excluded, but they certainly would have to disclose.
Disclose it, and then
And
it's
then
up,
the
then it's
assembly-
up to the assembly to decide whether or not that person can.
But we don't have to worry about it, because they're not going.
Well, at least as to the employees, now, because this just happened today, I now will contact the assembly people and say,
Yeah.
no, the planning director, who has his, knows what's going on in that world, that if he's saying, no, I don't want my employees to do it, I don't think this will work well in the future, then that's a pretty strong statement of the conflict of interest.
Yeah, but that
Concern.
doesn't take care of the
Are
assembly
the
members.
And no, but they may now say, never mind, if the
Right.
planning director is saying no for his
And
employees
if
to
they
go
don't,
there.
I
Well,
mean,
then.
it's time sensitive, so we should decide whether or not.
Well, it has been given to you, but I like your input, because I'll bring that back to the assembly people and
Mhm.
say, hey, were this to come before the board, I mentioned it, and they thought that, number one, for sure disclosure and possible
Yeah.
exclusion, well, they don't want to be excluded from those decisions. And that's a major part of the business, is multi-density
Yeah.
Right.
stuff that's coming up, is a major part of the assembly work in the next couple of years.
Mm.
We don't have enough land to go out, or we have to go up, and so, multi-density and multi-housing density or something is going to be the the future issues before us. So if they were excluded, they would never wanna do it.
Mhm.
What's the nature of the trip to Seattle?
To show them a lot of various, other projects that in Widener, and they said, and we'll make sure we throw in other developers' projects as well. We'll do, different types of projects under the new statutes and rules down there. And, how they look, and, now the planning director said, you know what? They can get a sense of that without going down there.
They can see pictures.
Yeah, I was thinking they could do a pretty good PowerPoint. You could even
You don't need to go to
incorporate video
Benchmark
as a PowerPoint.
to figure that out, yeah.
But you know what's sort of interesting, because I think I've gone on training things in private practice, and that the training stuff you can get outside with other people in your business is invaluable. And again, we write that into a lot of our contracts now, computer contracts, that there's a yearly training and networking thing. Invaluable, so I was less appalled by it. I thought, hey, if Widener wants to pay for our employees, great. As long as someone doesn't think there's too much of a conflict of interest type of thing. Almost all our employees who are involved and all the management, each one of them called me and said, really? We can go on a private jet to Seattle? I mean, they were just shocked.
Yeah.
I mean, how city employees
Yeah.
perceive
You
themselves
mean
as
I
not
don't
being
have to
able
take the center seat on Alaska Airlines?
Right.
No, but they were uniformly in disbelief.
Yeah, in row, whatever, at the very back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I was glad actually when the planning director
yeah.
said that, because it got me out of the middle of it. And you too.
So what do you want from us?
Well, nothing, I just thought I would bring that up because I thought that was an interesting one. And, but I think I will say that the board was concerned enough to say definite disclosure
Right.
and possible
Yes,
conflict.
yeah, well.
And it's
Well,
probably enough that they're
right.
not gonna wanna do it.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, they don't wanna risk getting kicked out.
Yeah.
I mean, they can get the tenor of the assembly the way they want to, but they don't wanna risk being excluded at a vote at a later date after they've already
Yeah.
done it.
Right.
And then they can't be taken back, and then suddenly they're out for what, indefinitely on all of
Yeah.
these votes? They don't
Yeah.
wanna, that's
Yeah.
a risk that, you know, good state in Seattle wouldn't justify.
Yeah. Okay, well, that was my
Oh.
interesting interruption to your agenda. And also the type of stuff I do get pretty commonly, that you have a week to decide it.
Yeah. Okay.
So back to our agenda under 8A.
7B.
7B.
I don't have a 7B.
I don't have a 7B.
But there's no tab for 7B, but it is on the agenda.
Oh.
And all it is that David attended the Assembly Ethics and Elections Committee
Oh.
meeting. And
I was unavailable.
You
I
were-
just thought
you were
maybe
under the
David
knife.
could give his impression. Dee was also there.
My impression?
Of the meeting. And the next meeting's on 10/22 if anyone wants to show up. What did you think,
Oh.
David?
What happened again? I'm trying to
Okay.
remember. It was,
I talked about the need for a rewrite. You
For a
turned it over to
rewrite.
me.
Did I?
Yeah,
I
you turned it
remember.
over to me.
But I followed up,
And,
didn't I?
did.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
we talked about that the real reason
Yeah.
that the marijuana resolution went through was because we didn't think the code was specific enough to prohibit it, not that it had gained our trust and
Confidence.
I thought it was
marriage.
interesting, the school board took a different decision.
The school board, I didn't. what
School
was that?
board said, we're not touching it, it's not our place.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you watched the assembly
No,
that
are you
night.
kidding?
The many members said the same thing, and the public.
Well, two of
Came
them
up.
voted no.
Yeah, but it was a very strong sentiment that why in the world were they doing this? And both from other assembly members and the public, so all the initial concerns here were well stated, it's just you have to deal with the code.
Well, I'm
Common
actually not
sense.
real pleased with the actual agenda, the actual resolution that came out, that wasn't what we told them.
I didn't read it.
And I heard that, I
It's
haven't
on the
looked at it.
agenda, it's coming
Yeah,
up next.
yeah.
But I just thought that the main thing about that meeting was that there was an invitation for collaboration between the two groups that I thought was very,
Mhm.
kind of exciting. Assembly member Trainee, who's chair of that group, said that, if you guys are going into this direction where you've got these rewrites, we're happy to let you bounce them to us, and.
Yeah, we had talked about how we had gone through that
Mhm.
process before and how we thought it worked out well, and that we see other areas that need to be clarified also, because we come across these little bailiwicks all the
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
And so, and if it seems like an area that needs to be clarified because we're gonna see these things coming up again, then,
Mhm.
and he was very willing to work with us, and we expressed our interest in continuing to work with them.
I'm
That's
very
it.
happy to have
Yeah.
members show up for the meeting, so.
No, actually, it was a good, I think it's very helpful. The more business we do with the assembly, which has been kind of a recent trend, the more we do that, the more important it becomes to continue to have contact with them and to keep working with them. Because it's kind of a new direction that actually is much more rewarding for me as a member of this board too. And that's what I, so.
I mean, as opposed to approving somebody from teacher
Yes.
again?
Yeah, when I first got on the board, that's all we did. And
Yeah,
then.
that's
we
all
got-
we did was teachers.
That's all we did. And then randomly, we got thrust into Channel 2 News at one point on the election issue. And then it's just kind of evolved from there. And so I think that's been a good evolution of this board.
Okay.
And I think that's what we talked about. Is that a good summary? I'm
Yes,
trying to remember what we
yes,
were talking about. It's coming
exactly.
back to me as I'm talking.
Well, if you wouldn't mind re-forwarding the invitation out for the 22nd.
Please do, because
I will send a
enjoy
reminder
going.
out, just like I
Yeah.
send for your regular meetings.
Yeah.
And anyone who wants to
I
attend.
did go back
is
and read it,
welcome.
and you did say Wednesday, or tomorrow, Wednesday.
Tomorrow, Wednesday.
Yes, which,
Okay,
of
sorry.
course, tomorrow wasn't Wednesday, but,
I just chuckled,
Okay.
I knew what you meant.
yeah.
So I'm gonna send these out, but I also am noticing them as Board of Ethics meetings, because if 3 of you show up, we need to be covered.
Sure.
So,
And be prepared to, Eugene,
Eugene.
he attends these meetings too, and he's very interested in whether we're there, whether we've been noticed, and whether he called to question the
The
who
47
was truly
hour.
invited to this, and who was truly a participant in this, whether we were actually a participant or just invited to join in.
Basically,
I
what
thought-
is the Board of Ethics doing here?
Right, and I thought Dick handled that very well.
Well, he's dealt with him
For
several
years,
times,
yeah, probably.
Where's
So-
the meeting held?
Here.
Okay.
Right here?
Mhm.
Right in this room.
Right in this room.
Right at this
No
table.
lunch,
Yeah.
sorry to
No,
say.
well,
No lunch.
They don't know how to have meetings.
No, the
obviously.
meeting lasted, what, 15, 20 minutes? Maybe half an hour, I
Half
think.
an
It was
hour.
a very
It's scheduled for
efficient-
an hour.
Mhm.
They just didn't have anything
Sure.
at that point.
No, I thought it was good. I think it's a good opportunity to stay in touch with them. And so that if, say, for example, we have something coming up that we wanna work with them, we can schedule a meeting, or we don't always have to go through you I thought, yeah. that it was
And I
good.
like that it follows your meeting, so that
Yes.
if you have something and you need
Yeah.
to bring it to them, they're 2 weeks later.
Yeah,
So.
no, I thought that was helpful. I hope that one of us can make it from, it doesn't always have to be Keith. It can be, so the burden doesn't fall on him.
I'll explain why I was flat unavailable.
Flat, yeah, no pun intended.
Great, are we done now with 7B that I
Yeah.
didn't know about?
Thank you,
look,
Lisa,
I-
for bringing that up.
I'm looking at 8A, which is the resolution, and my memory is that we told Assemblyman Trainee not to make they say we said something slightly different. We asked, what they said in the resolution, the original resolution, was to, we told them we didn't want them to urge the people not to vote. Yes, this one is slightly different. It says that the Assembly opposes passage.
Would you like one also?
I like what they did. to be honest
I do
with you.
too.
I think it's much more factual based,
It looks nothing like what we submitted.
Oh, I know
Oh,
where
did
that
they
is. They
rewrite the whole thing?
yes,
Did you read it?
yeah.
I haven't even read it.
Julia,
Oh, okay.
Julia actually wrote this one.
Who did?
I was gonna say,
This
She
is-
did not write the first one.
Yeah, this
This is very calm and
Yeah,
cool. I
I'm
think
like, wow,
I really,
I didn't
really
know
like.
that. I never even
I
thought
don't know
about
if Joy, I forwarded this on to Dee before the assembly meeting. I don't know if she shared it with Julia, but it really captures what I thought was
Yeah.
the spirit of our discussion, was
Yeah.
basically, the assembly is free to share its view on the matter, but it is not free to make a polemic on a matter. So in other words, it's not free to sort of like use heated language
Right.
and conclusory statements that really don't seem to have any basis in fact. That it's, but it is allowed to certainly use information and cite facts to represent its perspective on this issue. I think this actually does
I never even
a
thought
really
about
nice
it.
job.
I never even thought about the banking issues.
It's great. I think it's
Yeah.
calm. It lays out a lot of facts.
Well, that was on the rewrite that Dee had done. She had that the banking issue was one of the issues. 'Cause
But I
it's
mean, the
against
way they
law.
explain it
Yeah.
here and tying back to federal law and.
I think it's pretty
Yeah.
well done, to be honest.
Well,
It
you
certainly
had-
doesn't come off as a polemic or sort of like a heated, one-sided partisan,
Yeah.
which is what we sort of asked them to do. We asked them in essence,
To
tone it
factualize
down
it.
and don't tell the citizens how to vote, but tone it down and tone it down and say, this is our view on this matter. I think it does that.
And you also told them to focus on local government issues.
Right.
And they,
Yeah.
I think they did a good job of that.
Is it, this is a public document, right?
It's done, it's approved, it's,
Can I take
yeah,
this with me?
you can take anything you want,
Okay.
anytime.
So this is the
Share it
draft.
with friends, let them read it.
This is the draft that I sent to Dee, which would be the basis for our advisory opinion here, and so we should talk about this, in terms of whether, what changes we'd like to make to this.
Yeah, because we need to finalize this and get this
Yeah, because this should get out,
published.
because this is gonna be sort of.
What is this?
This-
Oh, we're skipping
Our
over this?
opinion.
This is,
So is this 8B?
No,
this is still 8A, this is the advisory opinion, this is actually the formal document that'll go to Dick.
Okay.
But it'll also be a public document
Okay.
then, and so this will be guidance for the assembly in the future in terms of when we do resolutions on ballot measures, what standards we're more or less looking at, what we're expecting them, what we think they're allowed to do and not allowed to do.
Okay, so here's the one that, before Julia got hold of it, way back here in the back
Mhm.
of this.
Right.
Because this is even different than the one that he proposed to us. Well, actually, that's exactly what we told him to do, is remove that last half of that last sentence. which you did, so I stand corrected.
Did this get to somebody before it was?
Well, Jim Curtis, he was
I'll
here.
have to ask Dee. I sent it, Dee asked me, she said, like, if you've got something, you know, I'd like to take a look at it. So I sent this to Dee. I don't know what happened to it then. I don't know if she did. I can't help but feel that Julie eventually saw this, because if you ask me, when I read this, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, someone read what I wrote, because
Right.
this is
Well-
like, this is
Yeah,
like, it's
that
almost
goes
perfect.
exactly with this.
It doesn't, I mean, it's just like, it's all been toned down.
Well, let me tell you, this wasn't available,
Yeah.
and
I thought this is
I was
very good.
asked to immediately prepare the notes or the minutes for these meetings, because Dick wanted them, you know, ASAP to take to Julia. And so they had that as a reference, and then I had, Julia came over several times and asked me to clarify a few things in the minutes and some of the directives,
So
that
they
notes
did
that I
take a
have
look at this?
taken. So I don't know
Oh.
that they necessarily saw
But
this,
they at least
but
got
it
your
was from,
representation of the meetings.
yeah.
Well, this isn't something you wrote, because it
I've
didn't say,
seen-
that the
I've
word
seen
polemic
this
isn't in there.
before today.
And see, I didn't see this
And I
before
was asked
today.
to comment on this prior to today. So any comments that I had, I've already forwarded those on to Dee.
Oh.
And I don't know if she sent it to Julia or not, but Julia was provided the advisory opinion, or the, I guess, whatever.
Your draft memo.
My memo
Okay.
from back in September. So, so to the extent there's similar themes, Julia had been given that well in advance here, and in training had seen that as well. on this.
So Dee's due back, we can ask her how far it went.
Do we need to?
No action to take.
Well,
place,
if
is
you
there?
want,
We
we
need to-
could,
Final.
now that, you know, to some degree, this resolution's already passed, we could
Right.
chop off the whole second page.
Right.
Because it's not, because in terms of the public document,
Yeah.
in terms of laying out the substance of what we think, we do need to approve it one way or the other.
Right.
Because it's gonna be in the advisory opinion, that'll be published, and it'll be public in the assembly in the future, we'll be able to look to this and say, okay, what do our resolutions need to look like? So the second page isn't relevant anymore. What do people think about the first page? Does that capture more or less the way people?
I thought it was
Yeah.
a good summary of what we had,
Right.
what we had discussed.
Move approval of page 1 of the draft.
Yeah, and what are we doing with, are we just 7A again?
Do you wanna take the second page off and then just, instead of having that, just have like cause you've laid everything out, and just do, in conclusion, we find.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Fill in the
And
blank.
that would be, could be included in any
right.
document.
Well,
So-
that's absolutely right.
Are we intending to publish, broadcast, or distribute this?
Yes.
All right, just making sure.
So I guess,
So,
Glenda, we should ask you what comments you did have for this one.
I didn't change, because I didn't change anything, and, what I sent back to her just was that, you know, if there was another draft resolution that was put together, could we see it prior to? But then, at that point, I think the horse had already
Well, I
left the
think
barn,
the
so
letter
to
is
speak.
probably-
they wanted that so quickly, they wanted it right on the
Yeah, they
next
were
agenda.
hot,
Right.
hot on the, yeah.
So it went, it was
This
already,
is a letter you wrote back to Julie.
correct.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much media coverage this really got though.
It got
I
an
remember hearing
article,
it right
there was one
then.
article I
And I
read.
think I heard it on the radio once when I was
The
listening to
paper ran
something.
it.
And training mentioned
Yeah.
the ethics board had,
It did.
and that's all.
But
Who
there,
did the research on this?
I thought it was, yeah, I don't know.
Right,
This is
Probably
good.
Julia.
Yeah.
She herself did
Yeah.
the research about Denver and the fire codes and the, wow,
No, it's really good.
I think so too, yeah, this is, yeah.
Too bad there wasn't a former news reporter that just would decide to end his or her
Yeah,
career
really.
by reading this. Sorry, I couldn't let that escape.
No,
What do you really feel there?
Well, I have to say, there has been some commentary that, people expressing that it was inappropriate.
That it was inappropriate?
what was inappropriate?
Them taking a stance.
Well, sorry, I got a couple assembly members said that. said that.
Yeah.
Well,
and-
that's only
We should-
one,
we-
right? Only the chair.
I
No,
thought
two
Stu- I
did.
thought
Oh,
Flynn
Two of
too,
them
right?
did, Flynn and.
He didn't like
one
this?
other, but
The chair didn't like it.
No, he did not.
What was the basis of his objection?
Was it they shouldn't be telling people
They
how
shouldn't,
they feel?
yeah.
And I'm like, that goes counter to what I've said in the meeting here
Yeah.
before, is I'd like to know what our.
I'm not surprised,
Yeah.
that would be the objection.
Yeah.
And
I
the
didn't hear
school-
what the second, what was the other one?
Well, I don't, it was on there, but the other issue was is that the school board just Monday night did exactly the same thing. They all said, 7-0 said, you know, they just reiterated their own school, dog policy. they wouldn't pass a resolution similar.
Well, I think they did what we asked them to do. And, you know, to me, these are all issues that the municipality has to deal with.
Yeah, when I came into the building here today.
I thought, gosh, this is really good.
Was on his
Yeah.
way out and we stood talking. He said he just came from a meeting with all the chiefs of police in the area. And they come out with a statement opposing this. So,
Well,
Opposing the,
no, opposing the
The
marijuana.
oh, okay, so in line with this.
Yeah, in line with that.
that was, yeah, that was good,
Yeah.
well written, well
Yeah.
researched.
Take that one.
And again, this is exactly what we were talking about. That appears very factual. You don't see any facts on the other side. So it's not exactly evenly balanced with the facts,
That's right.
but it's still, at least on
What
its
they put in
face,
there is.
it's factual.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, factual.
Yeah.
Because the one that Dee wrote did have some facts on both sides.
But it was also very inflammatory. Did she write it?
She wrote one, she had a substitute one that didn't go anywhere.
It didn't sound like,
The,
She
the
wrote the
first one was
substitute.
inflammatory, the second one they wrote had all those, those links.
Remember, and then it just said,
Yeah.
we urge
Go
active
here,
voters
go
to get
here.
informed.
Right,
It
right.
tried not to
Yeah.
be, really reach a conclusion.
yeah,
on
I
what
like this
the
one
other-
better because this one kind of jumps into the, okay, we're gonna make a statement. We're not gonna be vanilla about it, but, it's gonna be very factual. That was a good, yeah, that was a good compromise.
Okay, so I'll take this then
Yeah.
and just add a kind of.
Just add a conclusory sentence.
type of thing, and then
Yeah.
I'll send it off to Lisa to
Yeah.
keep the sign.
No, that's fine.
And we'll move on.
So is there a motion on the table?
I think it was a motion for this, right? To accept,
To accept and also distribute?
with.
To
a-
accept
with
the
a-
first page.
With a conclusory
with a-
sentence.
Yeah, with a conclusion.
Okay.
Do you think we should wait on the vote on that till Dee gets back, so that, I don't know if she has any input?
Is she coming back?
She's coming back, she said 5 minutes.
And it's been-
Well, I mean,
We
why
could
don't-
go
why don't-
on
why
and
don't we
come
vote?
back
We can
at-
always
Why don't we just-
move to reconsider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll second it.
Okay.
Aye.
That's this sheet without the second
That's right.
page. Right.
That's right. And we're gonna add a conclusory sentence.
Right.
Just sum it
And,
up.
and summarize it.
That's where he gets to use all those big words that we have problems with.
Right.
I
Yeah,
was thinking
maybe-
if you wanna put polemical in.
Yeah.
I noticed that.
Well, it wasn't in here.
I noticed that.
So we have a motion and a second. Any opposed? Hearing none.
Can I ask one question about taxes? Where would a business come to pay municipal taxes in cash? Do they come to this building?
The third floor.
Third floor. Is there a vault up here to store cash?
I hope so.
Yeah.
What are you planning?
Get ready to pay the tax.
I'm just reading about.
Are
they
there
have
many
to-
people guarding this?
No, I'm just saying they have to
Easily
transact,
cracked.
they have to transact in cash. You better get somebody up an armed guard and, it's crazy.
Okay, where are we now?
Moving right along.
Maybe. Oh, this is Glinda.
Oh, no, cookie, hang on.
Do we need to go into executive on this one?
8B.
It is 8B, but it's a notice of potential violation.
8B?
This is the old one from
8B is in Bravo.
2013.
Wow,
-3, the one
B
that,
is in
Steve, you
Bravo.
weren't even here.
yeah. I
But we
remember-
finally got a advisory, or not, whatever, a summary
I remember hearing,
memo from Glinda. Do you remember? The background is past the memo.
Right.
Okay, well, let's
It's
just-
our
School.
page.
Yeah, let's just not
bonds.
use any names
Oh,
I
or
have none
positions.
used.
okay, let me
Okay.
read this.
quote from Black's Law Dictionary,
Mhm.
which you used, Terry.
Well, I stole that from.
Oh, did you?
As we have something to vote on this time, this is actually very timely.
I thought there was a provision in the code or somewhere that designated a representative or designated, there was a
Superintendent.
superintendent to allow this isn't mentioned in here. What am I missing? Why wasn't that part of
Do
this?
you mean give me the backstory?
Yes,
Or at
please.
least to the extent that I got it.
I'm
So-
trying to remember this too.
I know. So I wasn't present for any
Right.
of the incoming or any of the discussions. So the way it came to me, she said that there was an outstanding response due on the NOPV.
Mhm.
Asked if I could take a crack at putting together a draft. So to get up to speed, Lisa burned a copy of the ethics board meetings. There were like 4 that were on there over the course of about 3 or 4 months. So I listened to the meetings.
Wow.
How'd you stay away?
I enjoy a good Pilates.
Or 4.
Right. So I listened to the meetings to try to make sure, first of all, that I understand what the issue was, and then second of all, that I understood the board's decision, because I
Okay.
wanted to reflect it properly. So in the end, this is what came out of it.
Okay.
Full caveat,
Yeah.
this may not be exactly what you all ultimately
Right.
decided, but it's difficult to piece it together over 4 meetings.
Because
that are
I don't
all
remember,
disjointed.
I don't remember a clear discussion or a clear conclusion that we reached either.
Right, so one of the meetings was almost entirely Steve's disclosure about your wife working for ASD.
Yeah. That was a long discussion.
It was a long discussion.
Yeah, it's very important, based on the number of requests we used to get.
So the way
I wanted to be clear.
You were,
Yeah.
it was good.
I was
So
crystal.
the way
It's a long
the way
one.
it kind of seemed to evolve over the course of the meetings was, the NOPV came in, there was initial discussion, and there were requests of Dee to find out how much money had been spent on the radio spots and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So she was gonna go back and talk to the person for ASD that was spearheading all that.
Mike Abbott, yes.
Yeah. So a couple of more meetings transpire. And then it comes out that, in fact, there were multiple print and radio spots that were being aired. Some of them were paid for by ASD.
Right.
Some of them were paid for by an entirely different unrelated
Private entity.
group. Private entity. So then it went, okay, well, wait a minute. If those private entities can do whatever they want, and the ones that, the violation, I mean, the allegations in the NOPV seem to be connected to the private entity. So then we gathered the ones that the school board had actually done, and from what I could tell, the determination was that they were purely informational.
That's what we discussed?
Right.
Okay. I
Does that
see.
sound remotely correct? So
I
if you
remember
look-
part of it being for us that
Here's some of them right here.
it says that, except subject to restriction to Alaska state law.
Right.
They're only allowed to
As long as the
appoint one
money's
person.
appropriated
Well,
under the
and
budget.
the Alaska state law,
Right.
and that would say as long as it's itemized as this will be used for advertising, political advertising.
Mhm.
If it's itemized in the budget that gets
Mhm.
approved, then you're allowed to spend that money
Right.
for that item.
Right.
Dee found that it was, and we said,
Okay.
oh, okay.
But
That's
we-
kind of what I
but-
remember.
But the
That's
board
what I
also
thought,
has,
yeah.
we had a very similar one from another branch of government,
Mhm.
very, very similar,
Mhm.
NOPV,
Right.
And we had one of the few times where we had a split decision. But an awful lot of that, and from what I remember from that, and even from this, is that whether it's informational or it's advocacy depends on the listener. And depends on your political bent.
So in a prior decision, you guys had actually outlined that.
We
in that
wrote a
one.
letter to the person who
Right.
the NLPV was
It was
directed
that
against.
one.
Right, and there was some sort of
Right.
points in that one about what constitutes
Right.
advocacy, and I used that
Mhm.
same
I saw that.
language in here,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
we
So
would be
just-
being consistent. in
Cause
the
that's
decision.
where,
Yeah, I noticed that language.
because
Yeah.
we don't all necessarily agree, and that's the point of having a board, I mean, otherwise why would you need more than one person?
I don't disagree with this. And I'm wondering whether we need or would want to include that other discussion that we had also.
About the APOC stuff.
Yeah, like this, oh,
Right.
and by the way,
Right, so that was part of the hearing, one of the hearings, one of the meetings, and I listened to that, and that was when it left off with Dee was gonna go find out about the APOC
Mhm.
monies, how much had been spent, whether it was a
Right,
line
and
item,
did we ever get that back? We never followed up.
I
with it,
recall
did we?
that
never
60,000 was spent.
I never heard
by the
anything, at
school
least on the
district.
record,
Right.
about that. And then, these were
It happened, it just
attached,
wasn't on the record.
and at the end, what, the punchline to me was, in any event, this is purely informational,
Mm.
it's not advocacy, so it's gonna fall into a different bucket.
Okay.
But I wanna make sure cause I don't have the benefit of having.
In a lot of these discussions, I'm in it here, and then I go back to the office, and
I know.
it's hard for me to dredge these back up again. If we don't have a conclusion that's in writing. But if it's something that we just kind of left, and then it's kind of fallen off, I don't remember where we were on this. I seem to remember something.
That's how I remembered it too.
Yeah,
But I
it
do
was-
have a vague recollection of taking a look at some of these ads and not being too worked up about them.
Right.
I
'Cause I
remember
think-
the substance part of it was this
Yeah.
technical issue. Remember, that's what's
Right.
calling us up. It's like, oh man, if we have to go into state law. and
Right.
find out,
Right.
That's not even our
Right.
purview. I
And
mean,
then-
but yet it's hooked into the code.
And then I
Right.
remember thinking too, if we're gonna try to track these down and figure out whether that was actually funds that were allocated and whether, and I'm thinking,
Right.
I would rather be able to go with something like this, because this to me is a much more,
Well, there were lots
Solid.
of those sort of discussions that were really technical, and then
Yeah.
jump ahead to the last meeting, and it
Yeah.
went, the way it seemed to go was, wait a minute, there were two different groups that were doing these advertisements?
Right.
Oh, well, that was the game changer.
Mm.
And so when we figured out the advertisements that ASD had actually promulgated, they were, by you guys, determined to be
Okay.
informational, factual and stuff that were just
I
informational.
feel like I missed it too.
I don't recall
I don't remember that
discussing
too.
the other people, because we
Yeah.
knew about the other people, but they weren't part of the
Do
NLPV.
you know who was?
I'm
at that
I'm
meeting?
relying
Who did
on your
most of the
memory.
I can get
discussion?
it, I have the CD of it.
She's
I
listened
just,
to
I
it,
don't,
yeah.
I just don't remember it.
I haven't missed a meeting, have I, recently?
No.
But this wasn't
And these
recent.
were last year.
It is just a long time
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I
Right,
do,
back in
so
2013.
I do wonder, I
Maybe
mean,
Terry was
given-
talking to himself then.
I'm almost always talking to
Nobody else
myself.
was here.
I wonder, sort of, given the length of like how long ago that we talked about this and sort of like how complicated the issue is, I do wonder if this is one where we do wanna write this kind of detailed letter. I mean, remember, our traditional practice was not to write a letter at all, except a formal, we reviewed your complaint and we determined that no ethics code violation took place. And
Which
we're
that
trying to
went
get
out,
out of
right?
that habit, so at least for people who
No.
took the time to complain,
Right.
that we give them something saying like, look, here's some of the rationale behind us using it. But this one, I'm not sure I feel like great about doing that on this one, because there's been such length of time since we really investigated it and we're talking about it, and we're trying to sort of like piece together what we said a year ago. I think I'd be a little bit more comfortable for this one, just sending the form letter, just, or just a letter that just said like, we reviewed your complaint, thanks for complaining, no code violation. And maybe sort of keep this around as a kind of draft for us to keep in mind if we get something like this again, to help remind us, what we were thinking, but.
Well, this is essentially reiterating what we also wrote right there.
And what you wrote in the other one that we're not really
So
mentioning.
the information in here isn't groundbreaking, the position. The question is whether we would have this position relative to the ads, right? Are the ads in here?
Yeah, they're right here.
How many are there? Just a couple, right?
It's like, I don't know, I think she put about 6 or 7.
Are they, oh.
I'm having a hard time believing that they only spent the kind of money they said they spent. But I can't get traction on that.
And these are all ASD, these are not the other companies?
Right, on the bottom it says
Or the
paid for
private.
by ASD, really fine print.
And one of them actually said that it was approved by the municipal council. I don't remember which one, there's one here.
Right,
Well,
this
they-
one says I'm Ed Graff Superintendent and I approve this communication.
And this one says this information was approved by the municipal bond council, whoever that is.
Boy, these are extremely factual. That's
Yeah.
it.
See if this QR code still works.
You know what, I'm actually, I understand what Terry was just saying, but, just by looking at these right here, I'm actually comfortable with it going out.
I forget what the complaint was.
Yeah.
That's how long ago it was.
We haven't responded even with the,
Form, well, yeah, that's right, well, yeah.
Whoever wrote that's gonna think, great.
Well, you know,
Thanks a lot after all this,
Thanks a
right?
lot.
But this response comes
Hey.
to, this response then goes public, right? On
Yep.
our website?
Mhm.
Okay.
well, and the QR code on this one actually takes you to even more recent bond
Mm.
information. So this was 2013,
Yeah.
if you use the QR code, it takes you to 2014 school bond information
I
on the
kinda-
Anchorage School District website.
I kinda put this under the
So-
category.
I
of
noticed that they held
I'm
back
ready
on their
to-
advertising this
I think
time.
it's good.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm comfortable signing it.
so for the complainant, should I include the letter plus our standard, our letter that had no embellishment, you know what I'm talking
Mhm.
about, and then add this letter to it?
I think you could.
Is that your motion?
Yeah, that's my motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
And should it be
Do
part of
what
the
Lisa said to
motion
do.
to publish it?
No, but I don't think we should
Okay.
do that.
We don't think we should publish?
No, because remember, it's confidential, right?
Well, but.
And we found no
we don't know who
violation, so
the-
it's gotta
right.
stay confidential.
No, even on a confidential one, we can do the
Scrubbed version?
scrubbed version.
I didn't read that.
Because
Is that
see, the
scrubbed?
complaint's not listed here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would this be considered scrub?
Right, there's nothing in the letter that references the NOPV number or the complaint.
There's nothing in there. Did you specifically draft it with that in mind?
Well, this does have the
Keeping it
NOPV
clean.
number in it right here. I mean, it's right on, it's under the reference.
But the
line.
respondent or complainant.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's no-
We can, and that can be
Right.
taken out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at
If
the
we
sole
need to.
discretion of the respondent, the board may release the closure statement as a public document.
So we
So
just-
at any rate, this couldn't be the closure statement, unless, the school board allowed it to be. But what we could do is, we could just have the formal disclosure statement. I guess we could attach, as long as it's sufficiently scrubbed. Because remember, the concern is to protect confidentiality for people who've been accused, as it turns out, maybe they haven't done anything wrong. You don't wanna wind up giving an official Board of Ethics document that will at least substantiate that a complaint was filed, that an investigation took place, right? And then that way, the complaint can at least wave that around and take that to the press. Look, the ethics board, sure, they didn't find a violation, but they did an investigation on this, and that's what makes the headline, right?
So are you saying
Well,
we need
the
to-
ethics did
Do we need to get
investigation.
this done by Mike Abbott?
Any reference to the school district needs to be taken out unless
Or
they
not
agree,
have it, but I
unless they
mean,
agree to
draft
leave
on
it
it.
in?
Yeah, that's right.
Do we wanna get, some check from them saying, yeah, publish it?
What section are you looking at, Terry?
Yeah, that's in, 070
Oh, it is-
G.
G?
070G. if the board does not find a violation of the chapter like we have here, the board shall prepare a confidential statement of closure listing the complainant and respondent, the assigned identification number, the allegations, the hearing date.
You see,
and
we
the
can do that.
finding- And the finding that no allegation was substantiated by the board, and the date of board closure. And that's what we used to send, we just used to send this, like, it just listed that basic
And we can do that.
information. And then it says, at the sole
And then-
discretion, but notice, at the sole discretion of the respondent, the board may release the statement of closure as a public document. So we're not even allowed to publish even that minimal kind of document
Right.
without the respondent's
But
permission.
this is not that
This isn't a statement of closure.
document, right? That one, the one that cover, we were gonna do too, right? The cover, and then this, attach it. That one we're not releasing, because that's got the name and the respondents and all that information in it. This is being attached to it, that's been scrubbed. Can we release this? Obviously, we're not gonna release the first document,
Well, you
because
can,
that's got all that's got all the information in it, but,
I think you can release this, at least to the school district, by just removing that response to a notice of potential violation, because
Right.
it doesn't go into anything other than how we feel,
On this
how
matter.
we interpret the law.
the subject.
Yeah, the subject, and
Yeah.
I don't see nothing wrong with that. And that would give them some guidance
For the
in
future.
future.
Right.
Yeah, I think
Well, but
that's.
I think the better way to, if that's the concern, then the better way to do that would be the way that we handled a previous case that was like that, in which we sent just a bare closure statement to the complainant, and then to the respondent, we sent a private letter, confidential letter, letting out, here's the reasoning, and in the future, here's the way the board's gonna.
But we did also, on that one, publish a scrubbed version of that.
Did we?
My understanding is.
Yeah, we
It's
did.
public,
But
yeah.
according to the code, if the respondent allows us to publish it, then we're okay.
Then we're
Right,
okay.
that's right.
And
I'm sure.
I would advocate that we get them to do that, because, you know, again,
It'd
I'm
be
looking.
good for them from a kind of PR
Well,
standpoint.
and I'm looking,
Sure, this is
you
not
know,
the only citizen who's like,
I'm
hey,
looking at
what's
this,
this?
Exactly.
I'm looking at this website, and it's new information, it's
Yeah.
got the same kind of information as the print here, it talks about bond advertising, informational materials are paid for by the school district, and, you know, and it links you to their Facebook page about bonds.
Mhm.
So I think it would be helpful for them to allow it to be a public document, so they can then refer to it,
That's right.
and we can also refer to it,
Right.
under the same circumstances.
Can, I was just gonna say, can somebody, Dee or Glenda, or, I would feel comfortable contacting, Graf or Abbott or somebody who would have the authority to release this document. Because I would think that they would agree to it.
Yeah.
And then we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Because under the code, the respondent has to.
Then they would
And
have
then,
a problem.
and they wouldn't have to worry about who we're sending what to whom.
Right.
And this way, we could send a copy of the cover letter and this to the complainant, and then release this.
Without that one,
Yes,
without that
yes.
indication about the violation.
Because the cover letter to the complainant would not be released. But that doesn't need to be released.
No.
This is the one that we want out in the public anyway, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So moved.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that would, I don't know if I'm amending the previous
Actually,
one, but.
yeah, because we already have a motion on the floor, but.
Are you rescinding your motion?
Well, yes, because we're adding the cover letter information, and
I'll
we're
withdraw.
also asking
Yeah, I'll withdraw
that,
my second.
who would
I'd be
do
glad,
it?
I talked with Mike all the time.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay, so you could get it from Mike, and then, and so, do I need to repeat that motion to be clear?
You have it, Lisa?
No, I've got it all.
You got it, okay.
I've got the standard,
Yes,
plus the letter,
yes,
plus publishing with the approval of Mike Abbott.
yes.
And Dee will take care of getting
Without
that.
that,
Well-
take that line out.
Without the reference line.
Without the-
And I've got
That's right.
removed for that.
That's right.
Yes.
And I think the important point, Dee, to make to them is the fact that they're continuing to advertise or provide the same
Oh,
information.
I'm sure they'll want this
Yeah.
published.
Yeah, because they probably hear this
Mhm.
Yeah.
from the public.
Yeah. I'm
You've
sure.
heard this.
Oh, I've heard it, and I personally, well, Mike Abbott used to play Dungeons and Dragons in my basement.
Yeah.
You know, I've talked to him
Dating
about this,
yourself.
so,
Yeah.
and told him that, you know, I've had a lot of complaints, so.
Right?
recently. I know, I realize,
I played
Anyway,
that too.
so, but we haven't heard from.
you played a different version than they did.
In my
Does
business.
that,
Yeah, maybe.
does that fit with what you were just saying?
Well, definitely if, I think it'd be a good idea for them to do so, and if they do so, that's great. I mean, generally, it's a practice, it's a practice I worry about. In fact, I'm looking at our scrubbed version of the one that you're talking about. This guy's gotta come down. This is not scrubbed enough. This
Oh, there's a
definitely.
notice of potential violation written at the very top.
There's a potential violation, and it basically identifies, quite frankly, who
Yeah.
that one was about.
Oh, wow.
That's gotta go. That does not.
You
protect-
wrote the scrubbed version.
Then I did a bad job.
You wrote it.
But I didn't put it up on the web.
If I
Who
can
did that?
interject,
But it was for
agreed last meeting.
scrubbing for the web.
Did that?
It's scrubbing for the
AKA
web.
Lisa, right? Well, if that is your real
Can
name.
I interject though? One of the things is Julia a number of times has admonished the clerk's office and myself that the scrubbed version needs to go up, and she can't believe we're not doing that. And I've looked to see in the code where that requirement is, and like you, I can't find that. There's probably something in the middle. If it's a private person, then you're concerned about their reputation, and you do things along that line. There's also, I think, some provision in here that allegations against the mayor are never confidential, or maybe it's
It's
This mayor-
advisory opinions only. Okay.
But this, and this mayor is indicated to us that, you know, he's always.
I thought he was okay with this one.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
okay. Now, if he was okay
Didn't
with
he
the
sign
scrubbed
off on
version,
this,
maybe
saying
he
this is
signed
not-
off. Did he
doesn't need to
sign
be
off on this,
confidential?
If that's what's scrubbed enough for him?
And anything we've dealt with him has never been confidential.
Yeah.
But the main thing though is that for whatever we make public about these investigations, they cannot make clear that an investigation was conducted against this particular person. And so it's gotta be
Under-
scrubbed such that, you could read it and be like, remember the one we did for, I'm not gonna say someone from another, and you couldn't even tell what administrative agency, what part of the city they were from. It was like, an employee, and it was so scrubbed you couldn't.
Well, how could you scrub this one though? This last one. I mean,
Well, we seem to remember some kind of, the person saying, go ahead.
I think I was supposed to get the go ahead and then didn't do that
Oh.
forever because I had never seen that version. I saw the other version.
The
which-
original.
Yeah.
Well, before we-
And all of a sudden we stumbled upon this when
Oh.
Lisa was out one day and I went through her files and I went, oh,
Oh.
we have a better version.
Well,
that
why don't we
doesn't-
get his?
Yeah, why don't I just get it?
His or her approval?
And if we can, I can re-scrub it, because now the same issue has basically come up with the assembly. It's the
Before you
same,
quit
it's the
in
same
30
issue.
days. Oh,
It's
yeah,
got
they-
035 hooks back into 025. I
Yeah.
can come up with something that's
Yeah.
super generic. In fact, we might be able to replace that just with the advisory opinion that we came out.
Okay.
So do we needed a vote on that last
Call
one,
the question.
right?
We do have a motion and a second on the floor. Do we have any opposition to the motion?
What was the motion?
Standard,
No, oh, you got all wrapped up in your.
Yeah.
No, it was-
standard response plus the letter, plus publishing the letter with the approval of Mike Abbott,
The standard response plus this goes back to the complainant.
complainant.
Well,
And then this gets posted with approval from Abbott.
Mike
yeah,
Abbott.
Mike should have considering his
authority.
position, he should have the authority to do it. If he doesn't, he'll have to go talk to the boss.
I have to go to the school board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
the
if he says yes,
supervisor.
that's his problem. Right.
But
But I
this
mean,
was a
if-
complaint against this, I'll have to
I
look at
should-
whether this was a complaint against the school district. or
No,
the
this,
school board.
it says Acre School District directly, that's, it says use their funds, it doesn't.
Okay.
Linda, thank you very much for your help. And listening to all of those, I can't imagine what that was like.
I'm
Either
glad I
very,
was
very
clear.
entertaining.
I'm glad I was
or
clear about my disclosure.
Very,
That
very
was
boring.
very,
I
that
don't
was
know.
the main takeaway.
Yeah.
Crystal.
So-
Disclosure.
But thank you again for drafting that. Okay.
Did we get the no objection on that one, are
No,
we good?
yeah.
No objection.
Okay. AC1?
8C1, so when you get into the 8Cs, these are the rewrites, the amendments to
Oh,
code.
this is what I had.
Yeah, this is,
Have we
fiddled
gone
with.
over Keith's?
oh, we need to step back to have Dee,
Yeah.
take a look at,
Did you,
Because
you
they
handed those
approved it.
out?
I handed those out and we approved it.
Yeah.
Are you
Oh,
sure?
right.
Yeah. You want us to go back now and revisit it?
Did you?
Really?
Yeah, we did.
seriously?
Yeah. David thought it
Well,
was
what
great.
they
I thought it
approved was
great.
to accept it without
Yeah.
the second page,
Yeah.
Yeah, take
with
the
a
second page off.
conclusory summary paragraph that Terry's going to draft.
So make it more of a general document, not specific to what they'd seen before.
Did I not read it carefully enough? It seemed to me to echo what Glenn had written.
Do we need to revisit it?
Can I?
Yes.
And my question was, I was wrong, and I went back and read the original one and read the notes. It was, that one was fine. The amended one, of course, but it's the resolution is so much different than what he showed us Or where we still had the issue with the last line and he corrected the last line.
What do we mix?
Here's my
Yeah.
concern.
Yes.
The first page I thought was just great, okay?
That's what we thought.
That's what we approved.
That's
Right.
all we're approving.
Okay, so that was great. And the second one was editing, which I would agree, probably we don't want in there. Because the whole thing could have been edited in different levels.
Right.
This was just the worst, and so
Right.
where do we
Right.
draw the line? But my concern was, I thought, at least for me, that a good portion of the decision was because the ethics code is not clearly written
Oh.
enough to prohibit conduct.
Right.
It's not that
It's not
this
saying it's
resolution
okay.
is okay.
Right.
It's that it really was not clear enough. And on the record, Terry, you had given a list of like 8 points, and it's not clear because of, and one was the tieback provision,
Mhm.
and what was the publishing,
Mhm.
and so
And
I.
that's what we brought
I-
up at this meeting with the
Right.
assembly.
And
Right.
so
Mhm.
I would love to resurrect those and add a paragraph as well.
That's a
Because
good
what this
idea.
does say is this is a partisan resolution, which it
Mhm.
is. And then that we do think it's partisan, but we had concerns with actively campaign. Is that really what this is when someone, and Terry, I don't know, you and I could maybe brainstorm on the phone and come up with some of those reasons. I mean, when you were in the height of this, you just listed them all off, 8 in a row, and it's like, oh, there it is, there's our
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, he was on a tear.
And so that's the only thing I wanted to add.
It's up
is-
to none of you were listening. You know.
Well, and it may be why that you thought it's so similar to the way it was drafted, because they got the minutes, so they probably got your
Yeah.
8
Mhm.
Well, they
points.
might have- well, I mean, I was really trying to capture the spirit of like, sort of like what you two had finally agreed on, is that there's like it's informational versus partisan, and then the logic I just sort of used was partisan means polemical, right? And so you can take a stand, but yeah, this isn't really what my position was. My
Right.
position, you're
No,
right, was
but it
that
is partisan,
The
but-
code, this is partisan,
Right.
and the code's just so unclear though in terms of this particular case of, is Lisa publishing stuff? Is that, using the
Mhm.
resources or not? I
I'm
mean, because I
cur-
will have to say that there is a downstream effect, that I'm starting to see, like, looking at this last one for the school
Mhm.
district is, I mean, I'm comfortable with the assembly having produced that resolution. Would I have been as comfortable if they had spent $1 million of city money
Right.
to run it in newspapers? This thing does say, we think it's not partisan.
Mhm.
Oh, I thought this thing does say we think it's
There's
partisan.
no conclusion.
Oh.
It just
No,
goes to, this
yeah.
is the way it should read, which is
Right.
why, that was one of the things that we discussed was, it needs to have a terminus.
That
There
it
needs
is
to be a
partisan, right?
conclusion
Yeah.
at the
That the
very
original
end.
version was partisan,
Oh.
right?
Because
final
it
version, I'm
urges
not
the
sure-
public to vote
I'm not sure
no.
I would be comfortable with even the final version, which
Right.
I love as a resolution from the assembly. I'm not sure I'd be comfortable with the assembly then appropriating $200,000.
But that's a
to run
different
it.
test, then you go up, to B or C or something.
So what
versus
is-
E.
But let's check that, before we, because what I'd rather us not wind up saying is, this was in fact not partisan, and now we're not fully committed, but we're sort of on the hook for that, and then to say, now as partisan comes up in other parts,
Mhm.
are we, could they spend money to,
But this,
You're on-
procedurally, should this letter address what was before the board, which was the original
Right.
proposed resolution?
That's true.
That's what we were asked
That's true.
as a board, that's the request, was, what is your take on this? And that was the document that was reviewed, deliberated on, and I thought this was the response to that
Mhm.
question.
Which we just,
But
we
I-
voted to change that, is what you're saying.
yeah,
We took that
you're right,
second
it's
part
different.
out,
The-
and addressed the
yeah,
original.
partisan drops out. and
Yeah.
becomes
Advocacy, yeah.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
all right, well, in that case, I'm kind of comfortable.
So this is why Lisa didn't want us to vote on it without D here, remember?
She knew we were messing up.
I don't know, now you have
We
to
ignored her.
reconsider.
Yeah,
We
we
need a
ignored
motion
her
for
advice.
reconsideration.
Now you have to reconsider.
Yeah. Or not.
Well, I mean, do we want to open up a paragraph to Terry Grant, basically? I mean, the concept that the code is not clear, and because it's not clear, we couldn't find a clear prohibition to what they were doing.
Well, I'm also, before I agree to do that, I'm a little concerned now is what we're gonna put in the conclusion.
Mhm.
Cause I'm not sure yeah.
I thought
mean,
we
it's-
had, I'm sorry, Mitchell.
No, go ahead.
I thought we had all decided it was partisan.
I thought so too.
So why not
I
say
had
it's
it in my
partisan?
notes.
Did we? It's partisan,
No, I
yeah. We all
thought you
decided.
two were
I
saying it
can't-
was not. I thought.
See, I thought
I don't think
you
I-
two,
I don't
or at least
think
the
I-
original version was partisan,
Yeah.
but that, with the edits
No, but
that
that's
we
what
were
we're talking, the
suggesting, it would
original.
become-
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that we
Okay,
all agreed
so
the
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 original
original
was
was
partisan.
partisan.
Yeah,
There.
Yeah, and especially that last sentence.
Yeah.
Right.
But then we said, take out this inflammatory,
Right.
take out this, and take
Right.
out the last sentence.
Right.
Then that's factual enough to
Yeah.
get by the.
In other
The
words-
partisan.
And because
That's
the code
Could-
doesn't
could it
clearly
be-
explain
Could it be
what-
that the assembly advocates a position,
Right.
but not in a partisan
Right.
way? And
Right.
so that's why I took partisan to mean,
Right.
I took from Linda's thing, the strong supporter or the zealous supporter. So it's not just support, it's not just
Right.
advocacy, it's a certain level of support. So I said, okay, polemics are out, statement of view rooted in facts and information is in. And that's sort of like the way, that's what I was trying to capture.
You were trying to.
Because it seems like that was the view that carried,
Yeah.
really that carried today. It seems like that was the view that you three.
Right.
May I
accepted.
read from the
Yeah.
minutes?
Yes.
There was a motion that the introduction of the proposed resolution as written is not actively campaigning, and that passed.
Right.
That the introduction of the proposed resolution as written is preparing, publishing, broadcasting, or distributing by any means material, and that passed. That the proposed resolution as written is partisan in nature.
Right.
And that passed, but it was a 3-2 abstaining.
Yeah.
I abstained.
And Terry.
Yeah, I abstained.
Yeah.
So
We-
publishing is partisan, but it's not actively campaigning.
Right, it wasn't
Right.
actively
Right.
campaigning.
But we said it was
And
partisan.
and
as
again,
written.
we're
all
talking
agreed it
about
was-
what was
yeah.
before us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all agreed it was partisan. I was hung up on the
So-
idea whether that was actively campaigning and
Right.
preparing.
So really,
you know.
it's how, it's the
It was-
intent of this what are we doing with this?
Yeah.
Are we gonna address what was before us? If we are, we need to go back and change it.
I don't think we should be too dialed into the original one. I mean,
Yeah.
the idea is to provide advice. Look, it's
Mhm.
too late anyway. The assembly went
Right.
ahead and did it, right?
Right.
I mean, so to some degree, I mean, they would be retroactively sort of covered by
Right.
what if someone filed a complaint in the next couple of weeks saying, hey, they shouldn't have done that, and they say, well, here was the. But generally, I think we should use this as an opportunity for guidance, right? And say that, look, in these kinds of situations, because this will surely come up again, here is the way the board's interpreting the code. And I think in some
So
sense.
that's what I thought we were.
Yeah, and I think in some sense, we can say, look, the code's not clear, like we did in this other case. The code's not clear, here's the way this board is gonna be reading
Mhm.
the code in the future, right? And so, and in some sense, it looks like the assembly nicely, in this case, already heeded our advice, so that we're
Mhm.
not really retroactively, or ex post facto zinging them. And we can say, look,
Yeah.
it's not clear, but here's, given its unclarity, maybe it should be rewritten, but here's how we're gonna read this code as
Right,
it is.
and I like that concept too, that the code doesn't allow, advocate, suggest that this is okay. We just can't find a prohibition here because it's written so poor, so unclearly. I actually like having that language in this, because that will help further our discussion in the future for a rewrite. And to put them on notice that we're looking at this as a potential something to.
Yeah, it could be added into 8.
So I,
C4.
I actually, I think what I would propose is that we give it back to Terry to add another paragraph.
That's what, I thought that was in the motion.
Yeah, that was the original.
Well,
But not just
that was the
conclusion
conclusion
paragraph, but
paragraph.
actually add
We're
some
talking
more.
about adding in.
My
Okay, well,
suggestion
then,
is to
we
take
need
it-
a motion for reconsideration, and then.
Okay, I
Make
moved
the
to
motion.
reconsider.
So
Second.
moved, second.
And then,
Third.
okay, and does that pass?
Apparently it
No
does, yes.
objections. Yeah.
Okay. And then the proposal would be to substantiate the conclusory paragraph, maybe even make it 2 paragraphs to include what we were just discussing about the clarity of the code and how it is not clear. What else do we add to that?
Well, I think that should be in addition to the discussion section.
Right, that's what I mean.
And then the
I'm kinda like adding
conclusion
2
needs to say,
paragraphs.
and I think it would be helpful in the conclusion to put kind of our thoughts on how we voted. For
Mhm.
example, taken or written in this way.
Sure.
The board feels that it's not actively campaigning, or I think if we can bring in our vote, even though it wasn't unanimous, we can say, we can kind of use that a
Well,
little
that
bit.
was sort of like the original version that I sort of had in mind was to present this sort of like, very fractured
Right.
discussion, a plurality, but not majority thought this,
Yeah.
a plurality, not majority
Yeah.
thought this, and
Yeah.
so here's what we're gonna settle on.
Yeah.
Right.
But what
But it all
wanna-
comes back to the clarity of it. I mean, part of what we were
Yeah.
wrestling with is the fact that the code is not clear. on
Right.
this. It doesn't really allow this to happen, but it doesn't disallow it to happen. So we
Right.
come up with this fractured discussion.
Which I
But
did find it interesting that we got to the end, and what did approve 5-0 was,
Was-
okay, you know, you removed that last half of
Yeah.
that sentence.
No,
and
that's true.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It went through.
But the thing is, I think that's sort of like the outcome we all sort of wanted for
Right.
different reasons,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's, you know, when you guys say, okay, what was, so I just sort of like went with you guys saying, okay, this is a clear, straightforward way of doing it, then I'll do that. But if we, but I could add this, you know, this is sort of like the lack of clarity of the code, and then would you prefer, what I would prefer,
Mhm.
and this is not necessarily the way, but to say, look, the code is unclear and everything, and so we couldn't, you know, the code's unclear. Given the lack of clarity, here is how, but so an interpretation must be made.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Here is how the board is gonna read this stuff. We already have one paragraph in there, the partisan paragraph is already that, right? It's not
Mhm.
clear, and so we're just gonna use the dictionary.
Right.
Other stuff's not clear, and so, and say, look, so at the end of the day, here's our view on this particular resolution and how resolution should be handled, but the code is very, very
Mhm.
unclear here and should probably be rewritten. But in the meantime, like in this other case, at least there's a clear statement from this board.
This is how we're going to.
We have to interpret it one way, and
Yeah.
I, you know, and I don't think, I don't wanna fall into the habit of saying, the code's not clear, so
Yeah.
anything goes
I
on this
agree.
matter,
Right.
right? Because that's,
No.
because the code's got all sorts of.
No, we have to have a decision and an interpretation.
And I
And
think
guidance for the
our
future.
votes kind of
That's right.
provide how we view it as a
Okay.
board. And that might change as board members move in and out, that position. might
We do
change.
tend to, however, use, as Supreme Courts do, case law. We create our own law.
Yeah.
It would actually really be nice if we had some sort of directory that told us what our case law was, because some of it we're relying upon, you know, butts in the seat memory of how long we've been here, and Terry's been here the longest, but there's still, you know, I don't know what happened much, you know, prior to Terry's.
We have books, I may have given some of you them in the past, of decisions of the board, of
think
all
you
our
have,
decisions.
yeah.
But would be helpful out of those is that the first 2 pages is an index.
Mhm.
And so it tells you the topic area. And I go to those all the time. So I think your point's well taken. It's just to give you back the index again and say, and then it's easy to get.
I think it would be nice, because we come up, 'cause sometimes we see the same thing over, and if we go back, we could review previous decisions, and if the situation is similar enough that we can stick with the previous, or maybe make a different decision depending, because the situation was changed, or times have changed, I mean.
I agree.
Of
Well,
course,
that's
change
right. I
our
think
decision
somewhere in the
too.
code it says, you know, this is not a court of law, we are not strictly bound by, you know, the previous precedent. But fairness does require that more or less, if your reasoning
does.
seems more or less, if the situation seems more or less, unless you've got some pretty good reasons to change your mind, you should try to stick with what you did in the past. But yeah, times change and boards change, and our view of how the code, what the code, that can change, and so.
Yeah.
So is that your motion?
So the motion is to
Yes.
to take it back and modify it according to this discussion.
Yeah,
How
but
about
we
that?
wanna make sure I think the most important part of this is these last 2 paragraphs.
Mhm.
And we don't
Yeah.
wanna water them.
We don't
down
wanna wash
and-
it out.
They'll stay
No,
more
no,
or less,
that's
yeah,
right.
they'll stay
Yeah.
more or less the
And then
same.
concluding with how we settled on
That's right.
the last issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
As how we'll settle going
So
forward.
we have a
So
motion.
that's a motion.
And a second, and you've got that
I need the
documented?
second. Who's the
Second.
second? Okay. Yes, I do.
And, any opposed? Great, so do we have one more motion we need?
Adjournment.
Second.